Oh, hey. How's it going? What are you doing with your lives? Are you ready? Let me get a little bit more in focus. It's a little bit better, don't you think? I think. Ooh, I'm really loud now. Good. 1 second. Why do I still have tethers of my ancestral self? Oh. Eee. 1 second. We don't have seconds. We've got minutes. Quite a few minutes. Because tonight, friends, tonight we're talking about D&D Homebrew. Oh, yes. How's it going? What's up, Pinkalink? What's up, Dragonos? How's it going, buddy? You're about to make some coffee? Good morning. How do I say good morning in Japanese? I guess seeing it spelled out wouldn't help me be able to do that. What's up, Lazy Indo? What's up, Pokey? Miles? Magnus? How's it going? You hacked your beard off? Really? Impressive. Bold. Daring. Is there schmutz in my beard? I don't think so. Like the state Ohio? So if I say Ohio, it's not, that sounds like I'm saying good morning. Ohio. All right, I'll try to remember that. It's been a while since you've been here, huh? That's okay. Sometimes we have to go far away before we can return. But that doesn't mean we can't return. Now, we may be changed. It might not feel the same. But there is always a place where we can go back to. Especially if there's ice cream. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Folks, welcome to the show. My name's CinderBlocksally. And tonight we are going to be talking about magic items. Magic items. Magical objects. Oh, the ways we can use them in our game. They are the shining light a player can follow to get through a dungeon. They are the power fantasy of a glorious thing that you can't normally do with a character. They are something to be wielded by a nemesis. They are a MacGuffin to be hunted down, or something perhaps to curse you. They're also a lot of fun to make. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You pick it up when I'm putting down? So we're going to be making some magic items tonight. Maybe. Probably. What we are going to be doing tonight is a handful of things. And it's going to... Honestly, it's going to be kind of dictated... Not by me. Oh, no. I will have a soft hand in this eve. It will largely be dictated by you, my dear audience. Those that choose to spend the afternoon or evening or morning, if you're in Japan, hanging with the old Blocksally. In my Discord, I have a section called Event Homebrew. It's in the general section. I have posted a thread there that you can add things to. If you have a magic item that you have been working on that you want to share and ask a question about or want some help on, or if you have an idea for a magic item that you're not quite sure how to work on or how to build, Or if you have a question about magic item stuff in general. But also, if your question is not deeply complicated, you can ask it in the chat. Or if it doesn't require reference documents, you can ask it in the chat. But also, and my personal favorite, is I'm taking calls. The theme of the night is magic items, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about them in any number of ways. Whether that is how many we should give a player, whether that is whatever we want to ask. So, if you are more keen on calling in and chatting with me on the line, we can look at your piece together or talk through something together. And the way that you do that is you go into the waiting room in my Discord. And there's even a special room channel right above it called Waiting Room Queue, and you can just see where you are in the queue. So you can be like, how many people are before me? And right now there's nobody. Which is fine. Because we're just getting started. This is a playlist that I put together that is going to be the music I'm using for a video that I'm working on. So it's sort of irreverent because the songs are intended for very specific like moments of a video. But there's one song on it that I really wanted to play. And now it's just kept going, and I'm just kind of rolling with it. We're just letting it pick the vibe. We have a couple... We have a writing prompt. Ooh, Brax has a thing he wants us to look at. All right, Brax, we'll look at that in a second. But we have a writing prompt that we are going to use to start the show. This writing prompt was given to us by our dear longtime follower, longtime friend of the show, Pinkalink. Thank you for the prime. 2 months. Oh my goodness, dude, we're on a roll. It's almost time to meet the parents. You know what I mean? Can someone drop a Discord link? I think this works. Let me know if that doesn't work. Try that link. If that link doesn't work, I will drop a link and I will change it in Stream Elements so it works. If that doesn't work, let me know. If you don't let me know, I'm going to assume it works. Let me get the prompt up for you guys so we can think about it. Because immediately what I'm going to say is if you do this prompt, I want you to post this in the Discord also, and we'll look at it. In the Discord. In the Discord. You do it through the Discord. And the link is in the announcement for this stream. So it's like in the announcement channel, it's like the big thing, and it's the link right there. So it should be findable. Hopefully. If it's not, let me know. Daily goal. We don't use you anymore. I don't like having a daily goal because it makes me feel like people are being pressured to give me money, and that makes me uncomfortable. So I just keep the whole stat. We got rid of that. Felt weird. Didn't like it. So we just glory in the numbers. We don't worry about hitting a number. Makes me feel about what we do. Makes me feel better about what we do. Here's the warm-up prompt. Create a... So today we're talking about magic items, Rex. The link worked? Yes! Oh my god, Sloan. That's the best news I've heard all afternoon because I am so excited to not have to figure out changing that in Stream Elements right now. Woo! Mamma mia! Boo! Ha! It's a good night. We're talking magic items. Here's the warm-up prompt before we get started. And we're going to do this together on stream also. Create a common or uncommon magic item that helps either a holy person be tricky or a tricky person be holy. I think it's a pretty fun idea for a prompt. This was suggested to us by our dear Databank, who is a longtime friend of the show. Now, I have some ideas for this immediately. So I kind of want to do it too. So maybe we do it together. Boom. Boom. Did you see how ready did you see how fucking quick I was with that? Here's the warm-up. I'll put it at the bottom of the page. Okay. I'm thinking we make a... I want to go with the direction of holy item for tricky person. Or rather, item that lets tricky person be holy. And I'm going to make it uncommon because I want to make it actually do stuff. Listen, ain't no harm in a common magic item when you have a fun idea. But I want to make it do stuff. So here's what I'm thinking. Thinking it's for a rogue, so it's rogue only. You don't need to interpret tricky person as rogue. That's fine if you don't. But also you need to play more D&D if you don't. Thieves Ankh. Grant a bonus or advantage to religion checks, and the Ankh is hollow, allowing for secure storage of items. Just a thought. Oh, that could be... that's a great idea. An arcane, a divine focus that you could also use to hide something in. That's a perfect... I think that's literally a perfect common magic item. Also, I wonder if you Parax wrote a while ago. What did you say? Curasio's glasses. These tinted glasses were worn by a legendary detective who solved a bunch of cases. They give the wearer advantage on skill checks that require wisdom or intelligence. The only way the user grants this bonus is if they say a witty one-liner while putting them on or taking them off. I think that could be pretty fun. I probably wouldn't make it all wisdom and intelligence checks. I'd probably just make it insight and investigation. But that's fun. All right. Uncommon magic item. Here's what I'm thinking. I think we call it... Get out of here. You're too big, font. Get smaller. Too small. Oh, boy. This music's making me feel like I don't have that much time. But I have all the time in the world. Because I'm in a time loop. Spoilers. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we call this one... Divine Smite. Maybe not Divine Smite. But I want to make a item that lets a rogue do a little version of a Divine Smite. So I'm thinking we call it Divine... Maybe we call it Smite Attack. Dagger of Smite Attack. It's a combination of Divine Smite and Sneak Attack. Okay? It's going to be a plus... No, it's not going to be a plus anything because it's uncommon. Uncommon magic items, if they are a +1 weapon, they usually don't do that much other things. And I want the thing it does to be kind of good, so we're not going to do that. It's going to require attunement for sure. Making an item require attunement is really good if you want the item to be powerful. The more powerful you want the item to be, the more limited it has to be in use, or the more attunement starts to become mandatory. We're making a magic item on stream as a little warm-up while we get ready for people to post their questions or go into the waiting room if they want to call in for the show. If you have magic items you are working on that you want to discuss. It's a CSI Miami reference? Ah, I should have known. I used to write for CSI Miami. That's not true. That's a lie. It's called a lie, friends. All right, Dagger of Smite Attack. Here's what I'm thinking. When you hit a creature with your sneak attack... No. When you hit an undead creature... No, an undead creature with your sneak attack, you can... We're going to give it charges. The dagger has 3 charges. When you hit an undead creature with your sneak attack, you can expend a charge to change the damage type to radiant and change the D6s to D8s. Okay? So you can basically expend a charge to make your sneak attack feel like a really powerful smite. Smites use D8s, sneak attacks use D6s. Having it do a little bit more damage by having the dice go up is good. So that's just a bonus, but it also fits very thematically because it's literally the mechanics of Divine Smite. And then radiant damage is just flavor. It's going to be useful 1 time out of 10, but mostly it's going to be the same as it being regular sneak attack. I guess it's because it's a magic item anyway, you know? Okay. As an action, you can expend a charge to cast protection from evil and good. The dagger recharges 1d4 minus 1 charges each day at dawn. So this is what I'm thinking for my tricky item, my magic item that lets a tricky person be holy. We allow them to do little sneak attack strikes, and we can expend a charge to cast protection from evil and good. I am not going to make the charges equal to your proficiency bonus. It is really, really, really rare for magic items to scale in charges based off of a resource of the player, or really scale in any way based off of a resource of the player. And this is already scaling because as you get more sneak attack dice, this power already becomes stronger. So I think if I was going to make it proficiency bonus times per day, that would just be too much. It would no longer be an uncommon item. This is barely an uncommon item as it is. The only thing I think that is saving this so that it is potentially an uncommon item is the fact that you don't guarantee getting all the charges back every day. If you just got all 3 charges back every day, I think that would also maybe bump it up over outside of uncommon, maybe. But this just makes me feel very comfortable with it in the space of an uncommon item. Remember, the warm-up is not to create any item that one of these types of people can use. It's specifically an uncommon or a common item. So in order to follow the prompt, we really want to be keeping power balance in mind here. What do you think? I think it's pretty good. I'm happy with it. Did anybody else try to make one? Once per day is pretty solid for features also, especially if you want them to hit a little heavier. Music, calm down. Okay, music, we need you to be a little calmer now. It was good. It was good for a bit, but it became a little too much, I think. Just like a slice too much. What about a smite? What about smite attack? Is its max between sneaky and smite? I don't understand what that means, lazy. I'm not sure what that means. That's true. You could make a trickster domain only item for sure. All right, there's my item. I feel pretty good about it. Item done. Screenshot. Use it in your game. It's perfect. Boom. Warm up over. How do I make this thing go away? There we go. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. I like a holy item for a sneaky person, so I would say beads of repentance. And holding these prayer beads after the character attempts to do something tricky, sleight of hand or lying to someone, they can repent for that action. The god looks favorably on you for your confession, and you gain advantage on your next d20 check. I think that could work situationally, but the thing is, being holy, like, gods aren't necessarily going to be anti doing something tricky or lying necessarily. You know, I don't. Here's what I would say, Brax. That's an item that would, in my game, it would turn into a joke item because people wouldn't take seriously making a confession. And I wouldn't want them to have to do that. That feels a little too heavy-handedly Christian for me. And I was like, I'm not into that. D&D's not, we're not here. We're trying to get away from the real world when we're playing D&D. Like the word T, but you say smite in front of it. I see. Smitey. Yes, I got you. I see. I understand. Let's see. We got some questions from people and some pieces already, so we could definitely take a look at some. Let's see. We got a piece from Fluffcopter, please, from the DM. Lazy has a question. Okay, cool. We got some stuff to look at. Fluffcopter sent us something, and they said, and if any of you want to join me on the call, you can. No pressure to, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to. I try to enforce a no news rule at the table. I think that's a good rule. All right, let me see what this is. This is from our dear Fluffcopter. Bam! It's bright. Bright! My eyes! What's your question? I'm going to read that first. You want to know if this is clear enough? Could it be use something extra or be more interesting? All right, let me take a look at what it does. This is called the Flickering Arrow. It is a rare item. Ooh. Damage dealt using this arrow is considered magical. I don't know if you need to specify that, if it's a magic item. I don't know if you need to specify that. When you shoot this arrow, it will immediately enter the ethereal plane from the material plane or vice versa. Okay, my first thought is, if you want this to be a overwhelmingly situational item, then I think it's kind of fine. Because it allows you to shoot creatures in the ethereal plane if you're in the material, or in the material plane if you're in the ethereal plane. Shooting creatures in the ethereal plane is going to be useful more often. But again, super rare. How many creatures are there in D&D that in combat transition between the ethereal and material plane? Probably less than 20. You also need to be able to see creatures first, and you can't see into the ethereal plane. That's true. Shooting a creature from the material plane from the ethereal plane is really strong if monsters have it, because monsters can get into the ethereal very quickly. And then I would argue it's almost overpowered for higher level characters that have the ability to cast etherealness. So, I don't know exactly what your goal is, but if the goal is for you to shoot creatures in other dimensions, I think there needs to be an assumption that the person wielding it has a means of seeing into those dimensions to make that shot. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. If the goal is to make an arrow that flickers in and out of existence and come up with cool things it does, I would not have this be, I wouldn't treat it like this. I would basically rewrite this almost entirely. And I would say something like, when you fire this this arrow strikes anything in the material or physical, in the ethereal or material plane. So just as it's flying through both planes, basically. So you can just have it hit things in both planes. And then maybe give it some mechanic where, like, because it's flickering in and out of existence, it, like, bypasses some amount of cover. Like, maybe when you make an attack with this arrow against a creature that is benefiting from AC from either cover or a shield, you can ignore that as it sort of like phases through an aspect of the defenses. I think that could work. But in its current state, if you want it to just be like this, it's fine. It's just it's super niche, and there needs to be a way to see the thing you're shooting at. Making a shot through walls would also be cool. Yeah, that would be fun. The way that you would do that is there's actually an arcane shot. What is that? Arcane archer? There's an arcane archer feature that is that. And when you use the arrow that goes through walls with the arcane archer, instead of you making an attack roll, everything in a line has to make a dex saving throw as it like goes through. So it allows you to take shots in places where you don't have a target. That's also a fun idea, Shades, but that's a little different. But having an arrow that when you fire it, it teleports to another location and fires from that direction would be super cool. Like, you have an arrow that you shoot it and you can make it like fire from straight down or from backwards angles and stuff. I don't know what I would do mechanically to express that other than basically giving you ways to like bypass cover. But from like a narrative, imagination, like just visualizing it, it's a really cool item. Like, I think it's just a really cool idea. Those are my thoughts, Fluffcopter. I don't have much more than that. I don't think there's anything wrong with an item that is super, super niche, so long as that is the intended goal. Because that is important to think about. Just there's really not a lot of creatures that benefit from etherealness regularly enough for this to be a thing you're going to use more than once a campaign. Unless you're fighting, like, specifically that sort of campaign. Anyway, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, thank you. Warm up, get off the page. Wait a second. Let me find where this thing is. Where is this stupid thing? There it is. One second. There we go. Little instructions at the bottom. And I want to make those instructions better. Okay. Boom. It would be a good collaborative magic item where one player is the eyes and the other is the archer. Yeah, but it would still create a situation where it's like, I think in order for that to work, I don't think would play out in a way that would feel powerful. Like, it would be like a desperate thing where one player is using their action to like call the shot and the other player is using their action to take the shot without needing to roll a disadvantage. And that's like fine, but it's, again, what are you getting? You're getting a couple arrows off. So I think it's very situational. Bouncing arrows could be really fun too. I love the idea of bouncing arrows. Bounce them around. All right, Fluff. Asked and answered. Thank you for sharing. Ooh, we have a magic item from the DM. Enchanté, mon ami. Fibonacci sequence. Alabaster Sinclair, some might say. Some might say. I don't know who, but some. I've been told. This is a new version of a magic item you've reviewed before, called Dawn Harvest. I'm concerned mainly with the final feature of the item, whether it's too weak or too strong. All right, let's give her a gander. Here it is in the chat. Boom. Boom. Dawn Harvest. It's armor. This breastplate bestowed by Ari, the god of nurture and agriculture, is made of a brilliant gold engraved with the designs of curled crop fields. In the center of the breastplate, a ram's head is embossed, surrounded by 5 opaline stars. The eyes of the ram light with holy fire whenever a magic of primordial being is present. That's fine. Dormant, +1 to AC. You can speak with beasts and they can understand you, and you gain the ability to decipher their noises and motions. 7 charges. Expend a charge to purify food and drink or sanctuary. For each charge you expend with his armor or with... This should be its own feature. This should be separate. You grant a creature 5 temporary hit points. Plus 2 to AC. Is this an artifact? Okay, good. Absorb elements, warding bond. Whenever an ally you see within you can see falls to 0, put a range on this. You become empowered to aid them for the time. You get more movement, opportunity attacks of disadvantage, and when you roll to restore hit points to an unconscious creature, restore the max amount. Plus 3 to your AC. Spell save goes up. Plant growth. Plant growth feels really out of pocket here. Here's what I'm going to say. Main feedback so far. It's going in too many different directions for the nature element to feel like it's hitting. Like, I feel the nature in the beast. There's an argument for it absorb elements, but nothing else here feels like it's nature-y. And then plant growth, but you're really dancing with it not feeling nature-y. I think you got to be careful with overdoing it in random directions, or maybe pick more of a focus of plant growth. Or plants, I mean, nature. Like, is it going to be is it elemental nature? Is it plant nature? Is it animal nature? I think you need to pick a lane a little bit. You spend 4 charges from the armor as a bonus action to summon an intangible aspect of a deity of nature. Is it nurture or nature? I think it's nurture. Yeah, then maybe this shouldn't be so nature-y. I don't know. I think you got to pick more of a lane. It feels like it's sitting in... It doesn't feel like it has a strong personality as an item yet. And I think it's because you're sort of dipping your toes into like a bunch of things as opposed to like building it in a solid direction. Whenever a creature starts its turn within a cube, 15-foot cube, you can cause that creature to regain 15 hit points. The aspect remains for 1 minute or until it has restored 75 hit points. You can use a bonus action on subsequent turns to move the aspect. What was your question? I think that I wouldn't make it be able to move. I think that it's a little wordy in the way it's written, which is also making me just be like, this needs to be shorter, and cutting the sentence out is going to help with that. But I think making it be able to move is a little overkill. Also, if this is all about agriculture and nurturing, this should be like them summoning a crop, you know? Or like, this should be like, the vibe should be like summoning a crop. And you don't move a crop. So it feels like there's a whole element of flavor you're sort of missing here by making it be able to move. I think it's probably fine, though. Honestly, the bigger thing that I feel like is I would make it more agriculture-focused or more druid feeling, but not this both sort of in-between space you're doing right now. Like, I would probably drop Speak with Beasts, come up with maybe something else, maybe. I would rethink a lot of it that doesn't feel like it ties to the flavor, because the flavor in what's going on up here is not matching the flavor that's down here. Or is not matching the mechanics that are down here. As the old saying goes, he who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Oh, Patman Rocks, thank you for the prime. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Those are all my thoughts. The DM, thank you for sharing. Let's give them a little round of applause. What did you say? Any monster recommendations for villains who failed to turn liches? I was thinking Nothic, Necrokicker, Adlip, Boneclaw, Skulk. I think any of those could work. Here's what I would say. Read those monsters. Read the lore of those monsters and the mechanics of those monsters. And then decide, do I have cool ideas for campaign things or combats or encounters or dungeons or mysteries that I want to do that involve this lore? If so, cool. I'm going to lean into this lore and maybe use these stat blocks. same question, except not focusing on the lore, but focusing on the mechanics of the monsters. From a pure mechanics perspective. Do these mechanics interest me in the types of stories I want to tell, the types of combats I want to run, the types of challenges I want to present? And if the answer is yes, then that's also could be yes, and lean into that, and maybe don't worry about the flavor, or do both. I'm not a big fan of being like, if I'm gonna run a campaign around evil warlocks, I have to use all the evil warlock stat blocks or anything like that. I like to pick things that either match vibe or match mechanics based on what I just think is going to be fun for my campaign. I like all of those monsters that you just mentioned, so I think like that's a great place to go if you want to go in that direction. But I would just say don't feel like you have to stick to monster stat blocks that you would normally associate with liches. Like, for example, you could, maybe the failed lich failed in a way that, like, they got sort of mutated, right? So they got sort of, like, weird bulky arms and, like, big crazy psionic head and things. And you could use a Formorian for one of those failed liches. And they're like a giant with a eye laser beam. Or you could have a lich that was, you know, trying to build themselves up physically as well as spiritually and like use all these monster parts, and it failed. And you could just use like a Catoblepus, you know, which is like a weird horse stink monster that shoots death rays. So just don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. But I like all of those monsters. Skulks, here's the thing about skulks. Skulks are one of the best monsters in D&D. Their stat block is so well put together. So fun, so good. They're really only good when they are the main monster in a campaign where characters are level 1 or 2. Maybe level 3. But once they're level 3, 4, it's not particularly scary anymore. And the fun of the Skulk is the mystery around how to solve the problem of fighting an invisible creature or finding an invisible creature, which is a mystery that you don't really have to think about after level 2. I love Catoblepus. It's one of my favorite monsters. Oh my God, we got someone waiting in the waiting room, and you know what they say, when you're waiting in the waiting room, you get to jump the line. That's how we do it. So let me grab Sloan. Hello there, Sloan. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, man. Sorry, I had to mute the stream. How you doing?
You don't like echoes?
Actually, I love them. I figured your audience wouldn't, though.
That is very kind and respectful. Did you send something in for me to be looking at, or did you want to talk about something?
No, it's quick. It's something short. I didn't
Sure.
think I needed to type it up. But,
yeah.
So they were talking about the arrow earlier. I had made something in the past kind of similar. I was just curious your thoughts on the balance of it, and figured
Sure.
maybe it would help that person.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
I had someone request an item made of dragon scales. So I took 2 of them and made 2 daggers, and it was rogue focused, but it could be changed up. I named them Hook and Sink. Hook
Cool.
is a standard +1 dagger. And Sink, the balance gets a little iffy. Depends on your level.
Sure.
So the way I set it up was 3 times per long rest. You could whistle or say a command word or whatever it is. And Sink just kind of auto flies to match with its mate. And then you can kind of decide whether or not that's straight line of sight, or if it has its own almost sentience, like Yondu's whistle type device. And it gets really fun leaving that in a rogue's hand for them to like hide somewhere, because then you could throw Hook and potentially have Sink come from hidden on a bookshelf and still get sneak attack potentially, even though your enemy's staring at you.
That's
So
a very
I was
interesting
thinking
idea, yeah. It's a fun idea.
looking what you thought about balance wise, and then turning that into something that might help that person looking into arrows.
What I would probably do, if I was going to try to write that up like mechanically, what I would probably do is have it so the Sink item, the way that it would work is, I don't know how you would trigger it, maybe a bonus action, maybe a reaction to you hitting with the first one, whatever. But it would then fly in a straight line to the first one, and it wouldn't be able to go through walls. It would just go in a straight line towards the first one, and any creature in that line would need to make a dex saving throw, and it would be, the item would probably have its own saving throw DC. And if they failed, and if that creature failed that saving throw, they would take the damage of the knife, and maybe if you wanted to on top of that, the sneak attack damage. You could say, if you haven't triggered sneak attack yet this turn, this can trigger sneak attack, or you could have it do extra sneak attack if you wanted the rogue to have potentially 2 sneak attacks around. It really just depends on how powerful you wanted it to be. You could also play around with it like where it's not triggering a secondary sneak attack, but the damage that it deals, if the creature fails the dex save DC, could just be equal to your sneak attack. So it's not doing as much damage as a sneak attack, but it's essentially giving you a weird area of effect angled, like, sneak attack on a saving throw as opposed to on an attack roll. So that would probably be how I would put together something like that. I think if it was going to be more of like a Yondu type thing, I would treat it like almost like spiritual weapon, and I wouldn't have it be a paired item. I would make it be an item that you essentially could throw, and then wherever you and it would maybe hover in air, or it would stick to something, however you wanted to word it. And then on subsequent turns, you could essentially have it throw itself at targets within range as if you were standing where it is. I would put something like that.
Yeah, that's dope. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think you could.
You could also make it a lot more powerful if you wanted to. It's just a matter of if you wanted it to be like kind of like an end game showstopper item, or like an item you're getting at like level 5 and is going to be good and you're probably going to use for most of the game, but isn't like, it's like one of the tools in your tool belt.
Yeah. No, that's sick. I appreciate it. Yeah, I figured somebody could take that and do with that what they wanted to do with the arrows. Maybe pair 2 arrows in a similar way.
That would be interesting. That would be really interesting.
Like a bonus action to just throw an arrow in the air.
Do you know what I would do? This is what I would do. Did you ever see the movie Fifth Element?
Yes.
You remember the gun that he shows and it has all the different modes that it has?
Yeah.
So one of the modes that it has like memorized bullet locations, so you can like shoot a bullet and then you can set it so every bullet goes to that spot. So you could have essentially, it would actually, what I would do is I wouldn't make it an arrow, I would make it a quiver. That is the magic item. And what it would do is when you activated the magic item, the first arrow you fired from the quiver, or whenever arrow you wanted to activate it, would be like the tracker arrow. And then every other arrow you fired from that quiver for like a period of time would like home in on that target. Like maybe it would ignore cover. Maybe the way that I would probably do it mechanically would be every subsequent arrow you fire intending at that target, you don't need line of sight. They get no benefits from cover. They just have to be in range. So the idea is like you could just shoot arrows straight up into the air and it would like shoot down and hit them wherever they were, so long as they were within the range of the arrow. So it wouldn't actually do extra damage. It would just make you shoot homing arrows for like a minute or something like that. That could be really fun too.
That's sick. Yeah, I think I'd tie it to the first arrow though. So if the enemy figured out they could pull the first one out and throw it on the ground, and then you're shooting arrows at the ground and not knowing it.
That would be that's really funny. That's a really funny thing. Yeah, you could even make it like you could even make it so like the creature that is struck with the arrow, I'd make it like mechanically in there where it's like they have to make either like a constitution check or a strength, some sort of check to remove the arrow.
Right, to pull the first one out.
Yeah. So like, because then it somewhat eats you could make it eat the action economy by making them use an action or something to do it, but you could also just be something they do at the end of their turns if you wanted it to be, depending on how powerful you want it to be. But that's just kind of, I don't know. That's fun. I think that's fun.
That's awesome. Hey man, I appreciate it. That was dope.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the call. Any final thoughts before I politely hang up on you?
No, I've just been a fan for a long time. Big fan.
Cool. I'm a big fan too, Sloan. You have the sameness as somebody that I went to college with, who I wasn't super good friends with in college, but well, let me rephrase that. We did not spend a lot of time together, but the time that we did spend together was so fun. he was a great person to bump into on like Friday night at 2 a.m. That was the type of friendship we had. So you just made me think of him. Anyway,
good. Sloans are a good bunch.
Yeah. Have a good night, buddy. All right, bye.
You too,
Click. Hang up on you. That's a fun idea for a magic item. Did we just invent a better arcane archer? Oh, Dragonist, you fiend. All right, we have one other person in the call, so we're going to grab them, and then we will go back to things that people have posted in the chat. But again, as always, if you want to call in, just go into the Discord, go into the stream, go into the waiting room. You can see where you are in the queue, in the waiting room queue, and I'll pull you on, and you can just be the person that I talk to next. Anyway, we're going to bring on Pinkalink. Hey, Pinkalink, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. What are we looking at today?
I'm...
The Sword of Sacrifice.
Yes.
Let me bring it up on stream. 1 second. I have a very special document because I knew that a lot of people were probably going to write them in the Discord. So I formatted a document specifically. Oh, you better mute me. Echoes.
Oh.
There we go. I formatted a document so I could post stuff. Boom. So this is your Sword of Sacrifice. So what do you as we look at it, what are you specifically what are you looking for? How can we help you? Hello? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm just... Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello. Tell me about the Sword of Sacrifice. What are you looking for here? How can I help you? Are you listening to me on the stream, or are you listening to me on Discord?
Sorry, I also have some connection issues there.
Are you listening on Discord or on stream? Make sure you're listening to me through Discord and not stream.
On stream?
No. You're in a Discord call with me right now. So make sure that you're listening to me in Discord, because there's like a 5-second delay if you're listening to my voice on stream. Make sure you're not listening to the stream, but you are listening to me in Discord. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So tell me about this item. What are your thoughts? What are you working on?
This is for my homebrew. For the Shivering Yonder. It's basically just a weapon I'm looking to give out, and I need somebody who kind of does this stuff more than I do.
Sure.
I just want to know if it makes sense.
I'm gonna ask you a couple questions just to get a little bit of grounding. What level is the party that you're giving it to?
They will be level 5.
Are all of them having magic items of similar power before I look at it, or is this sort of like a first big magic item that the group is getting?
For what it is, this is going to be like the first big one. Yes.
So the one thing that you're going to want to keep in mind if you're giving one big magic item, even before we look at what it does, is it is going to make whoever is wielding that magic item be significantly more powerful than everyone else. Magic items give a lot of power that you feel a lot when one person has them and other people don't. When everyone has them, you notice it a lot less. So I would consider, this might be a fine item, but it might feel too powerful if it's the only magic item in play and only one person is getting access to it. So I just want to keep that in the back of your mind as we're looking at it. Plus 1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. When you make the attack action, you can forego one of your attacks to wound yourself. When you do, you take 1d6 plus 1 necrotic damage. The damage can't be reduced in any way. Choose a creature that you can see within 60 feet of you. The creature becomes cursed for 1 minute. When you land a successful melee sword attack with the sword, a creature cursed in this way takes an additional 1d4 necrotic damage per attack made with a sword. Okie dokie. Let me keep reading. Once per dawn, using the sword, you can cast life transference as a bonus action up to 9th level. They're fifth level players, right?
Yes.
Don't give them a 9th level spell.
But the thought I had was, they're probably not going to use life transference very much because of like what it does. It takes health from one person and gives to another. Is
Yeah, but
that
it's just
unreasonable?
weird feeling. Like
Okay.
it's just like what let me look at the spell for a second.
Like, would it make sense to make it like a lower level?
Well, what do you want okay, you said yourself you don't think they're going to use life transference. So then what could you give them that isn't the life transference spell that they would use that does this same thing? What do you want them to get out of this?
Well, I was thinking it was thematic for the sword.
Sure. So describe it, how it's thematic.
Well, the sword, it's the sword. You have to sacrifice HP in order to use this feature. I thought by offering up to 9th level, they to give them a choice to sacrifice themselves. That's my thought process there.
Okay, so let me ask you a different question. Let's completely take D&D mechanics out of the picture. Let's not think about it like a video game. Let's not think about it like D&D. Let's think about it like it's a sword in a story. What is it doing? What is this aspect of it doing?
I don't know. I guess like the party is kind of all martials, and I thought kind of giving them a chance to be kind of like heroic, I guess, and like, oh, I'm giving my
like self-sacrifice, kind of like I'm giving some of myself to help you.
Yeah,
so
that was my thought.
Let me offer some alternatives.
Okay.
You could use life transference if you want to. I'm telling you right now, if you want to have it go up to 9th level, that's fine. I would not. I think that feels fucking weird. And I think that it's a bummer to give 5th... When you give someone at 5th level something that has access to something of a 9th level spell power, you set a precedent for a level of power that is unreasonable to expect at that level, and either leads to you sort of snowballing into just giving them way too much powerful stuff way too early to satisfy what their expectations are, or it just, I don't know, it just feels off. But you could lean into that. You could lean into what life transference does. So what if it was something like when a creature within 30 feet of you takes damage, you could use your reaction to halve that damage and take half the damage.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Just something like that. Like literally, that's why I was asking you like what the theme is. It's very, because there are a lot of spells in D&D, and it is a wonderful thing to just plug a D&D spell into a magic item, especially if you're playing a game where the players are mostly martial characters, because it really doesn't step on the toes of any spellcasters, because you don't have any spellcasters, so it doesn't matter. You don't think about it. But you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're giving them a feature and then needing to deal with that feature, if you know what I mean, if you don't have to. So like if the thing that you want this to be is just, I want to give a thing where players can choose to like sacrifice part of themselves to keep someone else up, you can kind of just make it that. You could also go in the other direction where you could be like, you could make it more of like a, you could keep it like this, where it's very action oriented. The thing I said is more reaction oriented, where it's like you're choosing to do it, but you're choosing to do it when something else happens. The way this is written, you could just choose to do it whenever. So it could basically be the same thing. Like it could literally be as an action, as a bonus action on your turn, you can take damage up to 5d8. You can choose to roll between 1 and 5d8. You take that much damage, and a creature of your choice within 30 feet of you heals that much. You know, it could also just be something like that. Like if you want it to be more closely related to that. But I wouldn't fucks around with the light transference. Let me look at self-sacrifice. When you drop to 0, say the writing is not as important here if it's just for your home game. But when you are brought to 0 hit points, you can choose to forgo your death saving throws and dying in the process. Upon death, you're transformed into an aspect of Our Lady Death for 1 minute before turning to ash. You cannot be resurrected without divine intervention. The sword becomes non-magical when the selfless sacrifice feature is used for 1d100 years. Okay. That whole thing that I said at the beginning about how you have to be careful about making magic items too strong when you're just giving one. This is really good for that, actually. I don't think this is going to make this player feel overpowered. You did a really good job with like the main feature that this thing does is something that is a team feature. So that kind of negates the issue.
Okay.
I think that the initial damage, where you take some damage and you sort of enter a mode where you deal more damage, I think is fine and good. I still think it should probably be limited. I don't know if it should be infinite use. Okay. And I also think if you make it limited, it doesn't need to target a specific creature. It could just be a thing where it's like you take a certain amount of damage and expend a charge. For the next minute, your attacks deal an extra 1d4 necrotic damage. And I don't think if you make it limited in use, you can make it, you could bump its strength in that way, and I think that would be fine. I think self-sacrifice is fine. I'm always hesitant to give players abilities that kill their characters, only because this is not me telling you not to do this at all. No. And in fact, none of this is me telling you not to do any of this. This is just my thoughts. If you disagree with any of this, please don't listen to it. But this is my experience, which is not the experience of all players and all dungeon masters, but my experience with things like this are very rare. Very rarely are they used, which is fine. It's actually, I think, better if they're not used and they're just sort of there for fun and for flavor. But they can sometimes create these weird moments where players like want to make like a big sacrifice to like save the day, and either the sacrifice they make isn't quite as impactful in the combat as they would have wanted it to have been, or everybody ended up losing anyway, or they just felt bad, and then it's like now your character's just dead. And I just hate that situation. So I'm hesitant to give my players too many toys that they can hurt themselves with, because and I don't mean like hurt yourself like the first feature. I mean hurt yourself like emotionally hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But that's because my players are immature and they just want to have fun, and they don't realize sometimes what their feelings are going to be after they make choices. But honestly, I think it's pretty solid. The only thing that I really don't like, and I actually think it's probably going to be fine for your game, but just from a game design perspective, it just feels so weird, is the 9th level spellness of that. Everything else I think is pretty much fine.
I actually do agree with you, and that was actually one of the things I was kind of concerned. I was like, I was on the fence about, but the 9th level thing, yeah, I do agree with you, and I think taking inspiration from that life transference, I do like that idea.
And you said that you liked life transference because you could scale it up or down. And I think that if you just make it a feature where you're just rolling dice, taking that damage and healing other people for the damage you take, and then you can choose how many dice you're spending, kind of does the same thing, you know?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun idea for an item. I'm very curious. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's the vibe of your campaign? Like, is your group more like serious, more goofy, more role play, more dramatic, more ADHD murder hobo? Like, what's the vibe?
Man, like I think it's somewhere in the middle. We kind of strike a balance of like goofy but serious, and I got a great bunch of players. Yeah, it's we just have this good energy at my table. And
cool. This is a good item for players that can dip into serious. This is a good item for that.
I agree. That's why I was like, I gotta show Cinder this, this thing.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, yearnings, aspirations? Oh wait, I did have one more thing I wanted to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Aspect of Our Lady Death. I'm assuming that's a stat block for something you have in your campaign.
Yes, that is a so Our Lady of Death is my world's version of I guess Kellenvor in the Forgotten Realms.
Okay.
So basically it's I wanted to give players like just a taste of that power if they go through with this feature. So I just took for my own like sanity, I took a CR, really high CR creature and just reskinned it.
Cool.
And that's what they'll be getting.
The only thing I would say is, and this is not you know your group better than I do, and it sounds like your group might not need this, but I do think that it would. Some players would want it. Is deciding whether or not you would share that stat block with the players before they use the ability. Like, do you want to give them some understanding of how powerful they would be in that state? And there's not a right or a wrong answer there, but I could see either being, I could see this item including the stat block of the monster so that people knew what it was turning them into, or for your campaign specifically, because again, you're not making this for like the big wide world, you're making this for your specific game. If you think it's going to be more fun for your players if they don't know beforehand, then leave it as it is.
I think my group honestly can go either way, but I feel like for this specific thing, I think the surprise would be better. I think though, if someone were to like take this and I were to also give out this stat block, I think for the wider D&D world, I probably would share it.
Oh wait, for the wider D&D world, you kind of would have to, because if you didn't, it would basically say you turn into something that the dungeon master will figure out what it is. And dungeon masters are like, great, this homebrew is making me do work. The reason why I said that was because I have at least one player that it would genuinely be me being not a good dungeon master if I didn't give them the stat block, because how much I know they would need it to feel like this was something worth touching with a 10-foot pole. And then I have other players who I think would genuinely be mad at me if I gave them the stat block. So I would actually change whether or not it had the stat block based on what player I thought was going to get it.
That's fair. That's fair. I agree there. But with this weapon specifically, it's going to tie into the lore, and they have a chance to potentially meet this particular goddess. So
cool.
That's gonna be fun.
Cool.
But yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before I hang up on you?
I guess one thing, if I were to like fix it in the sentiment, to kind of send it out into the world, what rarity would this be? Because I mean, in my world, it doesn't matter. It's not important.
Honestly, with the self-sacrifice, it probably would be hard to make it anything other than legendary.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, if you wanted to make it legendary, you could probably just make it an artifact, keep the life transference as a crazy 9th level spell thing, because that does work on an artifact, and then you could just give it other crazy shit.
Okay, that's fair.
But that's the only thing, is like, depending on how powerful Our Lady of Death aspect is going to be a big determiner there, because even if it does kill the character, if it's strong enough, it's essentially a button. It's a win this encounter button, and a win this encounter button is pretty strong.
Well, final thought: the creature is a CR 19.
Yeah.
So
like, to give you a little bit of perspective, the only other way I can think of off the top of my head that a player could turn into a CR 19 monster would be for a minimum 17th level wizard or sorcerer or bard to cast true polymorph or shapeshift on them, and they would need to be level 19. So normally being able to turn into a CR 19 monster would require at a minimum 1 19th level character and a 9th level spell. So that's just sort of like, again, the character is dying in this situation, but even though they're dying, that doesn't necessarily counteract the powerfulness of it. Like, for example, there's a scroll in one of the campaign books that just summons a Tarask. And that's all it does. It's just one and done, but like, that's basically an artifact, because even if it's just one and done, that's a big one and done, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's you could play around with it a little bit, because the character is dying, but it's still pretty strong.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, you've given me a really good perspective here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the call. All right, I'm gonna hang up on you now. You ready?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye. Click. All right. That was our dear Pinkalink. Let's give them a round of applause. Maximilian. What's up, Maximilian? How are you doing? You made one of these? Hell yeah. You were nervous? Oh, If you're ever feeling nervous, just ask me to make funny noises or do something embarrassing. I'm so happy to do that for you. I will demean myself to the ends of the earth and back again to make people feel comfortable. I don't know if that's the right way to do about it, but that's what I'm gonna do. All right, let me just see. We looked at that. We looked at Dawn Harvest. All right, we don't have anyone in the waiting room. So if anyone wants to call in, hop into the Discord. If not, we're just going to look at some of the questions that people asked us in the chat. Yeah, grab your headphones, Max. Yeah. Lazy Indo said, I was making the Rat King. One second, I can literally just put their question up in the Discord. Not in the Discord, on the screen. I was making the Rat King. Reference on the Rat King thing happened in ancient times. A ring that allows to understand what the rats are talking about and give them simple commands. But planning on making it so that you understand but you can't speak to them. They don't understand you? What? You understand them. But that's it. Okay. If I was going to make an item like this, let's call it rat collar. Call it rat. We'll call it whisk. What do rats have? Do rats have whiskers? We'll call it rat pack. Okay? Uncommon. Definitely requires attunement. While attuned to this, whatever it is, you can understand the, you can understand rats. See, rats don't really normally communicate, but I would say you could understand, you can understand, one second, you can understand rats as if under the effects of the speak with animals spell, but they cannot understand you. In addition, you can cast command from the whatever. I forget what it is. Targeting only rats. Spell save DC maybe 13. We put the DC here. Let's make it 12. That's probably how I'd make that item. Oh, they can't. That's true. They can't understand you. You can mask. Okay, from the whatever. As if they understand you. The annoying thing about it is I don't understand why you can't speak with them, but that was one of your caveats, but you should just be able to speak with them. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that you could understand them and control them, but not communicate with them. That's a very weird stipulation that you gave me. Lazy. But that's how I would make that item. Something like that. Yeah, I don't understand why they can't understand you. But anyway, that's how I would word. That's how I would do that. Boom. Thank you for the question. You mean more like doing signs? That's what I said, simple commands. Well, simple commands is the command spell, right? That's one word commands. And that's a way to do it magically. If you don't want it to be magical, if you don't want it to be spells, you could basically copy paste the language of how furbolgs can speak, or how speak with animals, or how not wood gnomes, forest gnomes can speak, because both of them get the ability to speak with animals. So I would just copy the language from those. Maximilian, go back to the waiting room you were just in. That was the right spot. Thank you. Ahoy, ahoy. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good. How are you?
Very well. Welcome to the show.
Let me turn off YouTube before I hear you echo like a...
No, echoing is
demon.
good. Echoing is good. Echoing is good.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. What are we... Did you send something in, or did you just want to chat?
I've got... I guess it's sort of some questions to pose.
Ooh, I love a question to pose. Boom! Full screen.
Oh, shit. I have been building this world for the past 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It is... I'm calling it Arcana Eterna.
Okay.
It's a real-world history if magic always existed. So, me and a partner are basically writing a whole origin of species. How did humanity develop? How did elves, dwarves, and that develop as scientifically plausible as possible, while also keeping the magic and whimsy of D&D as the main inspiration.
Sure.
The big start for this was I have the year's 1870, and that's the current area. I've got 2 different campaigns going at the same time, but I'm looking for I'm trying to make magic items that fit that theme.
So let me ask you some questions then.
Go ahead.
So in the Forgotten Realms D&D setting, magic
Yes.
comes from the weave, which comes from Mistra, and people have different ways of tapping into the weave, and that vibe is how a lot of people do magic in their games, where like magic comes from the weave. So where's the root of magic's power in your world?
We looked at the Big Bang, and I decided there's 3 things that are constant in life.
Okay.
There is death, creation, and life itself. So in that loop sort of circulates. There's things being created, things living their lives, and then things dying, and then it kind of goes in that circle. That's how our world works. In this world, there's a 4th eternal. Each of these points are an eternal, and they're not a god you can necessarily talk to. Some people do worship them, but they're more ideas than a concrete person you can worship. The 4th eternal is magic itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of that weave, and it's not one person. Mistra, and I try to have all the D&D gods in this world as well as all real world gods that we have today. You know, there's even the Norse pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, even though they're kind of lesser at this point in the story. But yeah, that's where the magic comes from. It sort of is this nebulous thing that is part of just the world itself and has influenced its way into life. Just a natural thing.
Okay. Next question. How do people tap into magic? Is it still sort of traditional D&D style?
Yes. By the I would say the Dark Ages, the medieval sort of era of humanity, that's where when humanity has access to it. The dwarves and elves gain access much earlier, but because they're so isolationist, both underground and in the forests, they teach a few humans, and eventually it perseverates throughout humanity, and humanity, like a cockroach, spreads over the world much more quickly than anyone could have anticipated.
So do you want magic items that are tied to like the time period, like 1800s aesthetic, or magic items that are tied more specifically to like your specific world building? Or kind of all
I guess both, because there's items that are considered so powerful that they like even in 1870, having a sword and shield is still as viable as a gun. It's just you have to be more skilled. And eventually, I think like the 1870 I picked because it's sort of that last era of unexplored wildernesses.
But it's also like the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly. So this is that turning point.
So what I would probably do, I'll tell you the first thing that came into my head. I think that
Yeah.
what you could play around with is the idea of sort of old tech versus new tech.
That's
Y-
that's kind of what I've got going.
So
on.
like very easily accessible and affordable, but very fragile, limited use, like wands that just like shoot little like I could imagine there being like people that are like what's it called, like smuggling in like wands of
Yes.
fireballs.
A Pirate Brothers Lafitte.
But they're
of
just like
the
one-time
1700s.
use and things like that. I mean, I would lean into a lot of like spells being used in items as like one-time use items that are like everything from like people might like buy something, like they might buy a bunch of them for like a festival where they're getting a bunch of get a bunch of little baubles of prestidigitation, or more shady folks are buying a wand of fireball. But I would lean into that, like the sort of mass production of magic, and the mass production of magic leading to
The cheapening of it.
the cheapening of it, and also playing around with that sort of space of like, what is stronger, the one guy with the really cool legendary sword, or the 45 guys with the one-time use wand of fireball? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So I'd play around with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a little bit. I was talking to, there's a Kickstarter that's launching tomorrow, actually. It's a Gunslinger's Guide to Rexfeld. And I've
Cool.
been talking with them, and they've got some really cool Wild West themed stuff that I've been looking at.
Fuck yeah. Does that sort of help? Does that push you in the right direction? Where's your brain?
It does, because the other thing too is I've got more traditional time periods, because I'm kind of crazy. I've got 2 campaigns happening in the year 1870, and then I'm running another campaign that's happening in 1170 during the Crusades. So I want to build out the entire timeline of the world eventually, and make it accessible to any TTRPG sort of thing. So trying to find ways to, like, if you want to play this TTRPG, it's this period of history. Like the more exploration based, it's the Peloponnesian expansion of the Pacific Islands getting explored and that whole thing. But
cool. That
yeah,
sounds awesome.
finding magic items that fit in this role. But I like that. I hadn't thought about the whole mass production thing.
And how that
The
would be used both for
industrialization of
good and
magic.
for bad. For good and for bad.
Yeah.
That would be the beginning of people casually just knowing with confidence that they can have clean food and water all the time.
Yes, that's the thing too. Like at this point, like there's changes in the timeline. So the opening sort of idea is that it's been 5 years since the United Nations of America and the Vampiric Confederate States had to sign a treaty because there was just so much attrition. And so the whole idea is that war is boiling up again and is about to break. And because of that, like, the Transcontinental Railway wasn't completed on time. There's kingdoms of dwarves and elves that actually control sections, so there's negotiations that have to happen. So, like, trying to figure out how to get technology mixed in with all of that.
I say lean hard into the vibe of the Industrial Revolution. That time where, like, having a rifle or a gun is a very dangerous thing, but they're not inaccessible.
Another thing too, yes, but another thing too is, like, if anybody's having problems with guns, I actually did something cool. I don't have like stats written out that I can send, but I can describe it. It's called, instead of firearms, it's rune arms. Because magic exists, instead of gun, because they're still cannons, but instead of trying to take things technologically and just developing gunpowder to be better and better, dwarves and gnomes invented rune arms. The gnomes sort of came up with a recipe for runic gunpowder, basically alchemical mixture. And then these rune arms are very powerful, but they're made with these very intricate runes to empower them. So it's a way for guns to be in the world, but also make it a little bit more manageable, because there's always a risk if you fire it for a rune to start wearing away, or if you drop it, something like that. So if anybody's looking for being able to give your players guns in a fun way, because dwarves and gnomes are always tinkering, do rune arms, because the more runes, or the more complicated the weapon, the more runes there are, the more likely it is to break, the more upkeep. And it's a really good way to add magic and add tinkering without taking away from the power of the weapon.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really like the idea of mass production.
Any final thoughts, yearnings, aspirations before I hang up on you?
I think every goblin in Kenku just wants a platinum piece to look
That
at
was-
shinies.
I appreciate that. That was a wonderful thought. I thought you were going to say something nice, and I almost hung up on you. Anyway, I love you. Bye. Click. And that's how we do it. That was Maximilian. 3 cheers. Audience, you need to clap too, guys. You have fucking keyboards. Clap. Come on. Don't leave him in the lurch. There we go. Now we feel like we're a team. It's not just me making a sound bit. We're participating. We're a team. If you decided to join me on this call and you were a little nervous and maybe your homebrew was busted as hell and it turned into me kind of trying to like make it better or fix it, that's a scary thing. You deserve a clap from the audience that get to watch that as entertainment, you know? So I appreciate it. You didn't no, dude, if you were taking too long, I would have hung up on you. I love hanging up on people. So you're fine. All right, I'm going to grab Lost Dragon Soul because they're in the waiting room. Lost Dragon Soul, I see that you are muted and deafened. So you're going to need to unmute and undeafen. Hopefully you see this soon. Hey.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. So tell me a little bit about what we're looking at. You said this is a magic item that is being dropped by a boss. And you want it to feel like a boss item, but you don't want it to be too powerful.
Yes. It's also a pair, like it's a pair of martial classes, and so I feel like that also might have been influencing like how strong I made it, for their lacking in other areas or how many teammates.
So it's
don't have.
Okay, just to set the just for clarity, this is a game where there are only 2 players and they're both martial players. Is that what you just said? Okay. I'm going to say something that I said to the other guy. If you're only giving them one really powerful item, you got to be thoughtful about how that power might affect the one who's not getting it.
This is just the first, but there should be a bit of a gap. But
there will be others.
I'm
Okay,
aware.
you Google. That's not a reason not to do it, but it's just a good thing to think about as long as you're aware of it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at it. This Chris sword, I love a good Chris, is earned only by the highest honor of the serpent goddess followers. It helps the priestess sever her foes. Not anymore, it don't. All right, let's see. When you use a bonus action, you can cut the palm of your hand, taking 1d6 slashing damage. You might want to have language about the damage not being able to be negated. The sword gains an additional 1d6 poison damage for 3 turns. So the way that you would word this is you would say for the next 3 rounds, let's say for the next 3 rounds, the sword deals an extra 2d8 plus 2 poison damage. I'm going to be honest, I would not make anything last 3 rounds. That's like a really annoying amount of time to keep track of. I would make it last 1 minute or 1 round and be comfortable with either. And I'd probably just make it dice. I wouldn't make it add a modifier. I would just make it 2d8 or 3d8 if you want it to be more. At the end of turn, you haven't brought a creature to 0 hit points or more to 0. You drop yourself to 0. Ooh, that's bad. Is that a really important part of the feature to have for you?
No, it could just be like a set amount of damage.
But why do you need to drop to 0? Like no one's going to want to use that item. That's not good. That's such a high risk. That's so high risks. Like, I'm just thinking about it if I was a player in this campaign. I don't want to use a feature where if I miss my attack 1 round out of 3, I go to 0. That feels like a big downside. So if that's really important, keep it. But if it's not really important, that should just not be a part of this.
Okay.
Also, this should be limited in use. The first feature. You shouldn't just have infinite use of it.
Alright.
You can use a bonus action. You mark an enemy to be devoured. Attacks against the enemy gain additional necrotic damage. It starts at +1. Don't just make it dice. Don't make it modifiers. And then when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, any damage you deal past 0, you gain as temporary hit points at a rate of half, rounded down. I like the last feature a lot. I think the second feature feels pretty unnecessary because we already are getting a damage dealing feature. Why? We don't need 2 damage dealing features. It's like, unless you like, I like the idea of, and also the first damage dealing feature is just much stronger than the second. So I'm not sure why the first one is infinite use and the second one is only once per day. Maybe
kind of
think about how many times it would take for these to, does it like, is this stacking or something?
Yeah, it's that. So after every hit, you roll 1d4, and then your next hit will be whatever the result was added to the +1.
So that means if you hit on all of your hits, this will maybe do half as much damage as the first one. It's still much weaker. But again, I just don't think you need it. Like, don't give, like, they're too similar. It's like, here is a system to keep track of to deal extra damage. Here is another system that's completely different to keep track of, but it also just deals extra damage. Like, give us something else that it does.
So my thought process was kind of that the first one was like for clearing larger groups of enemy, and then the second one would be more of a like one big target that needs to be brought down, like a death by 1,000 cuts, but not actually.
But what if you just make all of the attacks with the first one on the same target?
Yeah, but then you would, if they had like a larger health pool than you expected, then you would fall to 0 yourself.
But that's just a bad. But okay, fair. In order to deal with the crazy handicap that this item has, this feature becomes reasonable to exist. But if you take away the crazy handicap that this item has, which I think you should, this doesn't make it. It doesn't make any, like, they're two. It's just the same feature.
Okay.
So I would try to give it something that feels different. Like, maybe if you like the idea of having a feature that hits a bunch of creatures and a feature that hits one creature, then build it that way. Give it one feature where you do some big AoE poison damage, like a poison fireball or something, and then give it another feature where you hit creatures and deal extra damage to single targets. But I think having a scaling deal extra damage and a just dealing extra damage are, for all intents and purposes, the same thing.
All right.
Those are my main thoughts. And I would strongly encourage you to not keep the dropping a creature to 0 thing. That's like, your players. Maybe your players are going to be like, wow, that's cool. We're into that. And if they are, awesome. Keep it. They're going to like it. So if that's the case, keep it. If that's not the case, drop it. Because it's a big enough downside that it could potentially ruin fun. Yeah. The only way that it's not going to potentially ruin fun is if you have the type of players that explicitly like those kinds of things happening.
Okay. So if it was like set for 1 minute, I'm assuming the damage should probably be toned down.
I mean, it depends on how many times well, do you want it to be an artifact level item or do you not care?
I don't care.
Okay. What level are your players?
They're 12.
How many times a day can they do this?
If it was a minute, I'd probably say like 3 would be my...
Then I think the way to balance that would be to keep the damage high and just make it one attack a turn does it. One hit a turn. So it's not every attack, but like once per round when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, or once on your turn when you hit a creature with your weapon attack, you can deal an extra 3d8 poison damage, 4d8 poison damage, whatever you want it to be. They're level 12, so then the dice here can be pretty high for it to be reasonable. Someone in chat pointed out that the damage types are different, but like, that's interchangeable. Like, I could if you like both of these features, I could basically see you basically make this thing where it's like, this item has 3 charges. When you, at the beginning of, you can use the charges in 2 ways. When you hit a creature with the item, you can expend a charge to deal an extra 3d8 poison damage to them. Separately, you can expend a charge to enter battle mode for 1 minute. During that 1 minute period, you I don't know. I wouldn't. As I'm saying it, I'm talking myself out of it. But like, you could make the damage types interchangeable. I don't think having this be a different damage type and it addresses the issue that it's just dealing damage, and we don't need a magic item that covers dealing damage in multiple ways, unless those multiple ways are like significantly varied. And unfortunately, the way that it's written right now, I just don't think they are enough. Like, if you wanted to turn this into an AoE thing, or maybe have it so it's like, this thing has 2 modes that you can enter into. I spend a charge and I enter into violence mode. And when I'm in violence mode, once per turn when I hit a creature, I deal extra damage to them. Or I could do it into focused violence mode, where instead of it being all creatures, I pick one creature, and maybe it's more damage, or maybe the damage scales in that way. And you could do something like that, but you don't want to build like 2 entirely different mechanic systems if you're both just dealing damage. You just want both of those different ways of dealing damage to exist into the same system if you want them to be different. But honestly, I would just come up with a new other thing that it did that wasn't damage dealing. I think that would be probably more interesting, and probably help sell the vision of the item a little bit more. Like, maybe there's something that the monster does, the boss does, that you could take inspiration from to put here. Like, if they have a weird, like, resistance to charm, or if they have the ability to talk to snakes, or if they have some, I don't know, natural poison resistances, or things like that.
Okay.
Those are my main thoughts. Do you have any questions? Feelings?
Yeah. So for the first one, if it were to be changed to AoE, should it be a one and done, like a poison fireball, or like more of like a lingering, like poison cloud? I think it could be either. I think you could also, there's spells that do those things that you could just basically copy. Yeah. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I think the question is, what are your players going to like more? Are your players going to like a big burst of damage, or are they going to like the less damage, but the more tacticalness of the placement of a area of hazard? Because I think either would work fine. All right. I mean, you could put both if you wanted to, because those are very different. Those are pretty different, especially if you wanted to like maybe make it so it wasn't exactly fireball. Like, maybe one of them is like poison cloud, where it's like a spherical radius that you place somewhere, but maybe the AoE from the other way to do it would be like a cone coming out of you, more like burning hands or something like that. So you could change it so it would feel different in that way too, if you wanted to. Yeah. One last thing. It's kind of off topic, because now we're talking about like uses per day. What is it? Just like purely situational, or like preference, whether it's a flat amount of uses per day, or like you recharge 1d4 every time you finish a long rest?
Recharging, whenever you make the recharge based on a dice, you're making it a little less powerful. So I do a recharge based on a dice if I want to make the charges do extra strong things. And really what it comes down to also, let me ask you a question. You're using this for your home game. Is that the main goal for this item?
Yeah, it's probably the main goal.
So what I would say then, more specifically, once you hone the features, or even just as it is right now, let's say it stays exactly as it is. Do you want the players to be able to use it in its full strength every day, or do you want them to be able to use its full strength sometimes? That's really what it comes down to. Yeah, so then the dice. All right. There's really not a right or a wrong answer there. It's just another way you can sort of balance your item. Same as like, does it need attunement or not? Like, sometimes there's like logical reasons for it to work a certain way, but a lot of the time it's also just making it balanced, making it feel, giving it enough space to be as strong as you want the features to be.
All right.
Let me ask you a question. What, aside from poisoning and stabbing, what does this serpent boss do? This serpent priestess, what is her vibe?
It will, if it doesn't go in the D&D route of taking me completely by surprise, it will be very much like a jungle tempo, like full like traps and like pitfalls, and then a couple even like minions leading up to in like a hazardous like boss room.
So
in
the fight
essence.
with her is going to be a largely environmental fight?
Yeah.
Cool. Does she have any unique powers or abilities herself, or is she really relying on the environment?
Most of the environment.
Okay. How realistic do you like your game worlds being versus how comfortable are you gamifying things? Like, what are your players like in terms of that?
Gamifying is pretty good. Because
So-
they're kind of new coming from games.
So maybe I don't want to tell you to take any features out or not. Like, obviously, if you like it as is, please don't change it on my, because I'm not using it. Your players can use it. You know what they like.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to think of some alternative things to give it, maybe if the fight that they get this item from is one that's going to include a lot of traps and like environmental hazards, maybe this gets a feature that gives you some benefit in dealing with traps and environmental hazards.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't necessarily make as much sense from like if this was the real world, but it does make a lot of sense from more of like a gaming perspective. Like, you succeed in the fight where you had to deal with a lot of traps. The thing you got also makes you better at dealing with, is like making reference to the combat of dealing with a lot of traps, you know?
Yeah.
So you could go in that direction if you wanted to also. But no pressure to. But that is a thing that I like to do. If I'm not sure what an item needs, or if I think it needs a little bit of salt or something, like it needs a little spice or something, I will try. If I can't think of a good like in-world way of making it feel more interesting or good, I'll just lean into like what would make sense if this was like I was designing like a video game. And a lot of the times they can click in that direction too.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Any final thoughts, questions, yearnings, aspirations?
No, I think we covered everything.
Cool. It's a pretty fun
Inside
little
my
item.
tiny
I really like Gloria of Excess. I didn't talk about it at all because I mostly just really like it. So I want to just acknowledge that vocally before I hang up on you. I'm gonna hang up on you now though. Okay, you ready?
Alrighty.
All right. Love you.
Yes.
Bye. Click. Let's give them a little round of applause. The main reason why I was giving our buddy here a hard time about these two features is, in my experience, if two features in something as small as an item, especially considering how many options a player has, if two features in the same item are very similar, it kind of muddles the excitement of them and can often turn into a weird situation where they end up spending like more time thinking about which one to use, not because they're excited to figure out which one is going to be the more beneficial in that circumstance, but because they need to remind themselves what the subtle differences are, you know? And they sort of are like trying to play out the math of how much those subtle differences will impact the combat. And you don't want to create a situation where your players are doing that. That's a more articulate way of putting that. Anyway, thank you for the call. What did you want to ask a question about? Are we allowed to talk about an item that is already homebrewed? I don't really like giving feedback to items that other people made. If your goal is like, if you want to send me an item that you feel like is really unbalanced and you want to make it work for your game, I'm happy to try to help with that. But I'm not going to do like a feedback session because I don't like giving critical feedback to people that don't specifically ask for it. Just because it can come off a little brash. It can come off really brash. Boom. Let me see. Do we have anybody in the waiting room? We do. We have Vio. To me, Vio. Hello. Hello, Vio. You must unmute.
Hello.
How's it
Volume
going, buddy?
check?
Volume's good.
I'm doing good. Just making sure I'm not too loud.
No, you're good.
How are you?
Oh, I'm very good. Did you send in a piece of homebrew or did you want to talk?
I did not sell it. I want to talk about something.
Lovely.
It's a magic item.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
It's a somewhat, I wouldn't say loose, but it's a concept for something, and I want to know if it fits in, if it has something that fits it.
Okay.
I'll just start talking.
Yeah.
Anchor pendant. You are magically anchored to your location in space. You cannot be teleported or magically displaced. You weigh as if you are one size larger. You have advantage against all attempts to displace. That the last part needs to be more specific. That's kind of the idea of it. Is it's harder to move you. Any kind of way.
Would you want it to be No, keep going. Sorry.
I want it to be something with both an upside and a downside, a benefit and a hindrance to you. So you're very heavy. Maybe you move slower. Maybe you can't fly. Part of the hindrance is maybe the fact that you can't be teleported means that your teammates or even you with magic can't teleport yourself.
Do you want it to be an item that while you're wielding it, it's on all the time? Or do you want it to be an item that you activate and that it's on for a short burst of time?
I think if it's an item that you activate, it feels too similar to like a barbarian's rage or something. Like now you weigh more, you can't be teleported or something. It feels like if you're a barbarian and you have this item, it feels like you have now just a different kind of rage. And I don't think it should be that. Maybe
I think it could feel. I think that I totally see that, and I totally get that logic. I think you could build it in a way that it didn't step on the toes of a barbarian's rage, or like the enlarged spell, which also does stuff like that. But if you wanted it to be on all the time, I think the most important thing is you don't want it to hinder the players too much. Like, if it's on all the time, I probably wouldn't have it impact the player's movement speed. I might have it impact their flying speed, but I wouldn't have it impact like their base movement speed. What I would if it's on all the time, I would probably try to keep it kind of simple. And it would be like, the upside would be like, you have advantage on any saving throws or ability checks that try to move you against your will. And then you have disadvantage on dexterity checks and saving throws. Maybe something like that, where it's like you are or dexterity checks and saving throws made to avoid something specifically. So it wouldn't be all of those checks. It would just be the ones related to like avoiding something. That would be probably the way I would do that if it was going to be on all the time. Because if it's going to be on all the time, dealing with things like double weight and diminished movement speed can be really hamper a game. Or rather, they require the Dungeon Master to run the games, and they require the Dungeon Master to really change the game to fit the player's character issues in a way that I think could be very limiting. So those are my thoughts. I think you could be on all the time, but I'd keep it simple if it was.
I wanted it to be simple. I wanted it to have just one upside, one downside. It shouldn't be a wall of text if I roll it down.
So maybe you get benefits to, maybe you get advantage on saves and checks that are trying to move you, and then you have disadvantage on checks and saves that are about moving quickly or getting out of the way of stuff. That would be the easiest way to do it, I think.
That's good feedback.
If you did want it to be something that you could activate, then I think you could go fucking crazy with it if you wanted to. Also,
because activating it's now just a moment that it's like
also, if it's an item that you're getting at much higher level, depending on how powerful you want it to be, it could be a lot stronger than that. The item that this idea, if it just gives you like a bonus to some sort of checks and a debuff to other sort of checks, it could probably just be like an uncommon item or a rare item, depending on how powerful it ends up looking. But
I want it to be like a kind of an afterthought, like, oh yeah, I have this item, I can do this. It shouldn't be the point of everything you are.
If it's on all the time and there is a negative side to it, it is more than an afterthought. It is going to be something they have to consider all the time, because they are going to be considering whether or not they want to use it. Items with downsides, unless the upsides are shockingly good, items with downsides are the items that people are thinking about the most usually. Unless the downside is really benign. So you just be careful with that. Play around that with that game a little bit, you know? Like if you have disadvantage on dexterity things, that's going to impact you at least once a session. So you're going to be thinking about it a little bit. That's not really a side thought. But I think something like that could still work. Those are my thoughts. Those are my feelings.
Thank you for them.
Yeah, any questions, thoughts, yearnings, aspirations?
No. Have a good day.
All right. Love you. Bye. That was one of my Frenchmen. Like quelqu'un en do today. You Europeans, you love me. Why do Europeans like me so much? Is it because I look like the men from your legends? Is it because in olden times I was riding a bear in the clouds of your stories? Max, you want to come back on stream? What did you want to... Why? I don't want to talk about somebody else's homebrew right now, Max. I want to... There's other pieces that people have posted and stuff. I'm gonna give other people a chance to chat first. There's things that we haven't looked at here. I don't want to... We're not gonna double dip before we scroll through some stuff. We got a piece from Iceball. They just want some general balance. I'm going to tell you guys, I appreciate that you just want some general balance, and I'm not going to be a dick, but I hate when you don't ask a specific question. Because what happens when you don't ask a specific question is I go into critical feedback mode. And when I go into critical feedback mode, I get more aggressive than most of you like. And I don't want to be aggressive with my feet. I don't want... If you don't want somebody to make you feel like your homebrew needs a lot of work, you need to ask a specific question, or I'm going to make you feel like your homebrew needs a lot of work. So just know that. Because I love you all to death, but it's very easy to give a lot of feedback. It has nothing to do with the quality of your writing. It has everything to do with how hard it is to write, but not everybody's ready to have that conversation. What did you say? The character this is made for can see into the ethereal plane. Okay. Spirit Steel. Phantom Spirit Steel. Here it is in the chat. Do you guys want to look at it? No, Aggressive Cinder didn't come out. If people were like, that was Aggressive Cinder, you should go back and watch some of my older streams. Phantom Edge. The blade is a +2 magical longsword. You don't need to say magical. It's particularly... the longsword is partially incorporeal, letting you cut through even the toughest enemy defenses. Don't put flavor text in the middle of your item! You know what I love doing in the middle of combat? Trying to hunt for features. Sorry. See, that's what happens when I just start reading it and thinking about it. I'm just like, what are you doing? Why are you shooting me in the foot? Why are you making me go through flavor text before I can understand what this thing does? I'm in the middle of combat. I want to just know what it does. Flavor text goes up here. Or is 3 words or less. You ignore resistance and immunity to slashing damage. You may also hit beings that reside within the ethereal plane. Do they live within the ethereal? Do they live within the ethereal plane, or are they there right now? Any creature with a home in the ethereal plane can be struck by this sword. So fix your language. Once per day as an action, you can use the energy of Spirit Steel to transform a friendly spirit into a deadly ally. You turn 1 friendly spirit into a ghost, or 2 friendly spirits into poltergeist for 1 hour until they drop to 0 hit points. Those creatures act on your turn. Getting a ghost or a poltergeist for an hour is really strong. That might bump this to legendary. A ghost is a CR4 monster that can go ethereal, it's go invisible, can possess people. It's very strong. Can age people. Poltergeists are invisible and can deal a shit ton of damage to things that aren't able to handle invisible stuff. So, I would make it definitely not last an hour, and I would probably not give you 2 minions. I would probably give you 1 minion, and I would probably make it last 10 minutes maximum. You're not French? Yeah, Poltergeist is a creature. I think it's like, I don't remember what CR it is, but they're permanently invisible. They can huck things. But just being able to summon 2 invisible creatures with flying speed that can deal reasonable damage that you don't need to maintain concentration on, that are just your allies for an hour, is fucking crazy. Crazy! So, I think that I would make it less time, less options. But I think overall it's fine. I think it feels like a Spirit Blade. The flavor is good. The mechanics match the flavor very well. It's just a little strong. Those are my thoughts. Give you a round of applause. Where's my applause button? There it is. Oui, oui, bonjour. Je suis CinderBlocksally. Je t'aime. Arrête. Poulet. I actually am fluent in most languages. People act like I'm not because I like to pretend I am not good at accents. So it throws them off when I actually speak the language because they think I'm not good at the accent. All right, Iceball, those are my thoughts. I think the vibe is strong. The language needs some cleaning. Sorry for yelling. Next time, ask a more specific question. I don't think it needs more flavor, dude. I think the flavor is strong. All right, let's take a look. We got a piece from Bread. Also, if anybody that is watching wants to call in or send in some homebrew to look at, it is through the Discord. I love the calls. I would peer pressure you to call in if you were one of the people that's like, I'm going to ask a question. Call in, ask it. Call in. This is called the Quiver of Mildly Magical Arrows. That's a funny name. Here it is in the chat. If you guys want to give it a gander. Let me see what this is darling asked. This is a magical quiver I made for a player who asked to be able to shoot wild magic arrows. You roll on a d20 table every time you shoot it. I kind of made it that rolling a 1 through 10 is more detrimental and 11 through 20 is more beneficial. Of course, the player doesn't know what the arrows each roll gives, so the mystery is part of the fun. I did tell them they can roll for some really bad or really good arrows, so it's not something that they're going in completely blind. Any feedback is welcome. Sure, let's take a look. Uncommon item. That's probably wrong. It's a part of your attack with it. What is it? It's a quiver. As a part of your attack with a light, heavy crossbow. Okay. It's a part of your attack with a crossbow or bow. You can choose to draw an arrow from the quiver. Roll a d20 on the wild magic arrow table. Your next attack takes those effects. As an arrow is magically dispelled after its effects end. You could just say the effect ends after the arrow hits. The fact that you need clarifying language for how long the arrow lasts versus how long the duration is not a good sign. I don't think you need this sentence at all. You could just say I think the arrow could just disappear regardless. Okay, yeah, this is Mimic makes an attack against you. +1 arrow. +1 dex modifier. What the fuck does that mean? Just make it a +1 arrow. That's confusing. When you hit a creature, you cast invisible at 2nd level on the target. Deals 1 piercing damage max. What is that max for? Does this instead of the regular damage it deals? I'm very confused. Target regains hit points. I mean, the biggest issue with this is that it's just doing too much. Like, this is not an uncommon item. A lot of these features are really strong. It doesn't seem like it has any limitation in how often it can be used. The saving throw modifier shouldn't be anything based on you. That's not how magic items work. Magic items use their own saving throws. What would help make this an uncommon magic item is if the saving throw for this item was 11 or 12, because that is the saving throw of uncommon magic items. But this item is going to just take up too much space at the table. The only reason why the wild magic table works is 2 things. 1, Nothing on the wild magic table is complicated at all. Every single thing is really simple. Really straightforward, really simple. Very easy to immediately activate without needing to think about anything or read anything. The other thing, and a critically important one, is that you can't do it that much. So even though their wild magic table has a lot of stuff on it, it's not that overwhelming because it's not happening that often. Wild magic for a sorcerer is maybe happening 3 or 4 times a session, maybe. Now, wild magic for a barbarian, that's going to be happening probably every combat encounter because it's triggered by their rage, but their wild magic table is even simpler and smaller than the sorcerer one. This item is just going to take up too much time at the table. I don't want a magic item that does 100 different things that I can use all the time. I want a magic item that does 100 different things that I can use in a very limited fashion. And like this kind of stuff, like this one deals more damage. This one has more range, but also there's a teleporting. This one also deals more damage. This one, like they're a lot of them are sort of similar to some other homebrew we looked at. A lot of them are really similar. You don't need 4 different ones that deal extra damage. If there's 4 ones that deal extra damage and do another little thing, just have them do the other little thing. So yeah, that's my main feedback. I think this is going in too many directions. It's much too powerful, and you can use the features much too often. It's going to take up way too much space at the table. It's going to take up too much time at the table. Yeah, too much across the board. Make it so you can pull an arrow once a day. And it makes it more reasonable, but it's still a little more powerful, I think, than an uncommon item in some circumstances. Maybe not. Maybe if it's limited to once a day, it's reasonable. No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's doing a lot of crazy... Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this is a rare item. And I think that it is a rare item that needs significantly limited use. And don't do too many features that do the same thing. Did I answer your questions? You didn't ask for any questions other than regarding balance and rarity, which I answered. That was literally all I was talking about was balance and rarity. Boom. Hopefully that's helpful. I played with a 1D1000 Wild Magic table too for Wild Magic Sorcerer in my first campaign. It ended up being kind of a shit show, but it was really fun. There were too many things on that table. I knew I made a mistake by letting my player use that table when they rolled on the Wild Magic table, and the thing that happened was they summoned 100 clones of themselves. Like, oh, this table is doing too many things. That's too much. That's an annoying thing that I need to deal with now for the rest of the game. All right, thank you, Brett. I hope that was helpful. I think the idea of a quiver that shoots out wild magic arrows is cool. I think you gotta tighten it up a little bit. All right, we got Thunderwing in the waiting room. Let me grab Thunderwing. Thunderwing, what's up, buddy?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
What are we looking at?
So, I sent it in the thing, and I actually made this for a challenge that you delivered a while back to make a common item.
Cool.
And I just missed that stream, so I'm like, you know what? Let's put it now, and see what you think for it.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily a common magic item, but
is there any specific sort of feedback you're looking for?
Not really particularly. I just want to see what you think on it, and like, is it actually common, or do you think it would be a little more? I'm not sure.
Sure. Dimensional sheath. This sheath can store any one weapon regardless of its size. While stored, any checks made to hide or conceal the weapon have advantage. It takes an action to draw or store a weapon from it. I think it's I would drop the dimensional rift aspect that portable holes have.
Yeah,
and I would also drop it taking an action. I think it could still be.
Okay.
I think you could still just pull it out, take it away. I think it's fine. I like it. I think it's solid.
Okay.
It's also, I think, a really good example of how to make a common magic item that's very it's very evocative. The idea of a character that is like pulling a great axe out of their pocket is a very fun thing to have, and it doesn't need to necessarily do anything awesome because it is awesome.
Yeah, I only threw in the dimensional thing because I'm like, it is a dimensional thing, so I would think it would interact that way with like all the other dimensional things.
The question you need to ask yourself when you are having that discussion with yourself, which is a valid discussion to have, but the question you need to ask yourself is: are you building this thing with the goal of it being quote unquote realistic for the game world? Or are you building it to work well? If you're building it to be quote unquote realistic for the game world, I think you maybe would want to keep something like this. But I also think that you could, but there's also, I mean, there's arguments for not, because that's not how all interdimensional pockets work. If you take a bag of holding if you cast rope trick and pull a bag of holding into the rope trick, it doesn't destroy the bag of holding. That's going into another dimension. That's going into a dimensional pocket. So like it doesn't always happen.
I didn't know that.
So it doesn't always happen because the only thing that you're bumping up against if you do keep this feature, and honestly, it's an issue with bags of holding, is that this feature is too powerful for a common or an uncommon magic item. The only reason why it is somewhat reasonable on a bag of holding is that people don't want to lose their bag of holding. But even that I think is not reasonable. Like if I was to invent the bag of holding today, it probably would not have the pocket interdimensional astral hole thing. I would just not include that. Just because I think it's not like, it's going to be fun in a couple circumstances. It's going to be really fun once, and then it's going to be really annoying to deal with.
Yeah. Like I feel like the only reason I care about those rules is the idea of the like destruction javelin, you know?
Yeah, and the
you
thing
know
is,
what I'm talking about?
yeah, like a lot of people love that. Like they, build the blueprints for how you could make an arrow that when the arrow hits, it knocks a bag of holding into a portable hole. So it's an arrow that just shoots a dimensional rift suction with no saving throw or attack. Like that's a really fun thing, but it's like when you are willfully trying to break the game, I am no longer feeling like we're playing the game. Like some people like that. That theory crafting is fun for some people. But from a dungeon master perspective, if you are willing to, if you are going to play a game that is doing that, you often end up playing a game that is less playing a narrative story adventure and more sort of sitting around with your friends planning and theory crafting, which could be really fun, but it's just not the kind of D&D I want to play.
Yeah, you definitely need the right group for that.
I'm much more interested in like let's go through a story adventure than let's spend 10 minutes looking at how spells work and plan a really cool way to break them to kill the monster in one hit. Some people love that, and I get that, but that's just not the game I'm trying to play. But yeah, man, I think this is solid. I really like it. Everybody watching this should just steal this and use it in their own game. It's just a good solid common magic item.
I actually think I also have a version floating out there that doesn't have that last paragraph, so that's probably...
I mean, dude, if it's for your home game, fucking keep it. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I do find how D&D Beyond does the homebrew, where you don't like update the previous version, you just make a new version and then post that. I find that a little annoying.
If I felt like I would be giving any new or insightful information, I could spend a lot of time talking about how much I don't like D&D Beyond and how poorly implemented it is and how malicious how it foreshadows and speaks to a deeper malevolence within the construct of D&D. It sort of is almost like not only is it poorly implemented, it is like a little snow globe iteration of what is going on behind the scenes in the totality of D&D in a way that is like not the best. But we don't need to go down that rabbit hole because I would just be yelling for 20 minutes, and would be really fun for you guys to watch, but then I would be in a bad mood.
I could add to that conversation as well, because there is so many things. Like, honestly, one of my biggest gripes right now is how it like mixes D&D 1 and D&D 5e.
Yeah,
like,
I fucking hate it.
They're both on there at the same time, the same amount.
And it's harder. It's like you actively have to go out of your way to find the old stuff, and like it does this thing where like depending on how you have access to it, it changes how easy it is to find. So for example, if you are in a D&D game and the dungeon master has access to stuff, you can look at that stuff. But if you try to search that stuff, it sends you to the place to buy the book. You can only look at that stuff if you know what book to look at it in. Go to that book on the website, find that book manually by clicking through the chapters. It's so because it's so fucking money hungry. It's the worst.
Yep.
It's the
No,
worst.
I understand, but.
Hey, at least they spent a lot of time trying to promote a VTT that never worked, and then they fired a bunch of people and turned it off. You know?
Fun.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, listen, any final thoughts before I hang up on you?
I don't think so.
Did you just hang up on me? Did you just hang up on me? Did you just hang up on me? On me? Why? Why did you hang up on me? I thought we were having a nice conversation. What happened? Anyway, thanks for calling. Yeah, I was trying to force a tear. It didn't happen. I can sometimes cry on command, but I have to like build myself up to it, and I was too cognizant of how stupid what I was doing. I was too aware of how stupid what I was doing was for me to get emotional, actually. If I can like sit and get in like a sad headspace or like a nostalgic headspace, I can do it though. The power is in me. Also, Pinkalink is the only one supporting the claps. Oh, Maximilian clap too. Thank you. I see it. I see you, Max. I see you. Not trying to be rude. I apologize. Mil disculpe. Let's see. We looked at Lost Dragons Homebrew. We looked at Lazy's. Lazy, did we talk about yours enough? We did. That was the one where it was like, okay, make it so you can speak to rats and cast command on them, or copy the Furbolg. Yeah, I remember. Okay. Let's see. Rocket 4. I'm confused by what you sent in, buddy. think I have the document. Another person not asking for specific feedback. What's going on, guys? Come on. Why is this item so long? I'm trying to think of a cool buff you could get if you find its pair. I'm going to have a really hard time not giving feedback if I read this thing. I'm going to try really hard. I'm going to try really hard to read this and not actively give feedback. Because that's not what you're asking for. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut about any feelings I have. I'm going to keep my mouth shut about any feelings I have and just try to read it. Rocket, I was saying that you didn't ask me any specific questions about the piece, and you did tell me that it was poorly formatted. So, all right. So do you actually want me to talk about it then? Like, I sort of feel like if this is something you wrote 4 years ago in a fit of rage, I'd rather maybe you make some, you look at it first before I look at it again. Could we do that maybe? Does that make sense? I feel like that's more reasonable. Unless you're comfortable with me yelling about how terrible it is. If you're comfortable with me yelling about how terrible it is, I will read it right now. I haven't read it. It probably isn't terrible, but I need to have free reign to go hard. Okay. Okay. Boots of Thunder. What's the rarity? Why isn't there a rarity? It needs a rarity. Once per day, you can use an action to stomp the foot that this boot is on. What a bad sentence. With concussive force and cast the spell Thunder Wave with a spell to save DC of 13. It recharges once per day at dawn. You don't need to say once per day twice. You can set it down here. You get +2 to attack. Bonuses to unarmed strikes made with the foot in this boot. Stop using that. Oh my god. Look how many fucking wasted words you have. Oh my god. Do you know what? Hey, fun fact. When you're kicking someone with a foot in a boot, you're kicking them with a fucking boot. How about this? When you kick someone with the boot, they're not Neanderthals. They will understand what you're saying. How about when you make an unarmed strike with the boot? Genuinely, reading the made with this, reading the clarification that it is the foot with the boot once was like, that's a little bit stupid. Why are we writing this way? Let's not write this way. And then the second time was like, I don't want to read this anymore. I'm going to keep reading it because I do want to keep reading it. But if I was reading this like by myself, that's where my head would go. Like, why are we writing this way? This person doesn't know how to write in a way that makes me want to read. So I don't want to read. Would you like me to stop? You said you can stop reading it if you want. I'm happy to keep going. I like doing this because I do know that there is feedback that is given amongst the turmoil, but I only like doing it if people like it happening. So if you don't like it happening, I will stop right now. I'm happy to stop. The only reason why I started was because you asked me to. Rocket, I'm waiting for you, buddy. Let me know. Green light or red light? I don't play with yellow light. Rocket, I'm gonna mute you if you defend your piece while I'm reading it. The original mission had a wondrous item. This is a single boot. What does that have to do with any of the advice that I've given so far? I know it's a single boot. But again, when you kick someone, you don't describe kicking someone with your foot in a boot. You just say you kicked them with the boot. It doesn't matter that it's a wondrous item. Especially if it's intended for unarmed strikes, because unarmed strikes can be made with any part of the body. Don't apologize. You don't defend yourself. Don't apologize. You don't need to defend yourself. Your piece stands for itself. I'm reading it. You told me to give you a general feedback review. That's what this is. You're no doing nothing wrong, which also means you don't need to apologize. If you feel like you're doing something wrong, realize that I'm not directing any of these words to how you exist. I'm directing them to the way this is written. That's all. That's not you. That's this. As you move forward from this, you can make it something new and something better and something great. Don't apologize. On a hit, you deal thunder damage plus your strength modifier instead of bludgeoning damage. What? Change this. Just say you're okay. So here's what you'd say. First of all, we shouldn't be. I don't love that it's getting attacked. Okay, you need to pick a lane here. I think this either needs to just say you get +2 to attack and damage rolls that you make with unarmed strikes with the boot, or you make it where when you hit creatures with an unarmed strike with the boot, your unarmed strikes with the boots do 1d6 thunder damage instead of whatever they normally do. Don't do both. Both is annoying. It's too much. Also, weirdly, this makes this like not at all a monk item, which maybe was your goal. But you don't have the strength modifier thing in here because the strength modifier thing here just means that a monk will never use this, which is stupid. This should just work for monks. So just make it so you're just dealing 1d6 thunder damage. Target has to make a DC saving throw or be pushed 15 feet away from you. This can't be on all the time. That's much too strong. That means if I'm a monk, I could knock a creature back 45 feet every round with the 0 resources being expended. It's crazy too powerful. You could make it once per turn. You could make it something that is charge based. You don't need to say this. It's already a magic item. You can kick or stomp an object such as a crate or a door with tremendous force as an action. Put as an action first. Whenever you're writing any features in D&D, Arcane Affinity, thank you for the 300 biddies. Whenever you're making, this is a good rule of thumb for building features. This is the order of events you do. You do the triggering action, then the limitations, and then what happens. So triggering action is an action. As an action, you kick and stomp, and then you get to the limitations. What are the limitations? An object. So you kick and stomp an object. Then something happens. Always write your sentences that way. It'll work so much better. Also, there is literal language in D&D for objects that are loose or untethered, and this is not what that language is. That language exists in spells like Thunderwave. Copy that language. D&D is a game where language means mechanics. They sit in the same space. So if you are not using the language that is normally associated with the mechanics, but especially if there is language that is normally associated with the mechanics, people might understand what this is supposed to do, but their lizard brain is going to look at it and be like, this doesn't make any sense. This is wrong. Their lizard brain is going to think that you don't know how to write as well, and that's going to trigger into this is not as good, even if logically that doesn't make any sense. So you want to make sure that you want your sentences, especially if they're introducing mechanics that D&D already has, that they're using the same language as D&D. Then you have advantage on a strength check to kick the object at least. Why is this so complicated? So you can use an action to stomp the ground. Then, on the next turn, if you want to, you have advantage on a strength check to kick the object at least 20 feet farther than usual. How far can you usually kick the object? I have no fucking idea. How well do you need to do on the strength check to succeed to go at least 20 feet farther than usual? I have no fucking idea. What happens when an object is flung 20 feet farther than normal? Does it impact in any way? Does it deal damage in any way? I have no fucking idea. So you're going to want to clarify all that. So I would just highlight this, hit the backspace button, and then write it over again. And I would say, as an action, you can kick a medium-sized object or smaller, propelling that object 20 feet forward in a straight line. Any creatures in the way have to make a dexterity saving throw or take 3d10 bludgeoning damage on a failure, and on a half they are pushed 5 feet in either direction. Something like that. You need game mechanics. You can't just randomly gobbledygook. That's my thoughts. All of that. All of those are my thoughts. I think the idea of a boot that you can cast Thunder Wave with and kick to do thunder damage and kick an object with is awesome. I think buried under the dredges of rage and innocence and inexperience, there is a very interesting item under this. But I will tell you here and now, dear Rocket, that you are at a crossroads. You have good vibe. Vibe is hard to do. But you have really poor sentence structure, really poor mechanical clarity. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how good the vibe is. Poor sentences and poor mechanical clarity is going to lead to an item never being used. The reason why it's an unfortunate crossroad is vibe is really fun. Not everyone's good at vibe, but everyone thinks vibe is fun. It's fun to think about the theme of an item and the different things that item could do and putting them all together. That is just fun. Doing the work to make sure all of it makes sense and is smooth to read and feels good to read and is written in the game design mechanics sentence structure of D&D, that is work. That is where it goes from fun to work. Some people enjoy that sort of work. For them, it feels sort of like research. But the question that you need to answer for yourself is, do you care? Do you want this to improve into something more usable, or do you want it to stay at this thing that is probably usable for a home game, but will still lead to a lot of situations where the player misinterprets or doesn't understand exactly the limitations of its power, and the dungeon master and the player need to work it out at the table. So it'll eat up a lot of time, but it's definitely usable. How do you submit stuff? Arcane Affinity, also thank you for the gifted sub. Through the Discord, buddy. Through the Discord. And I politely ask that you have a specific question. If you're sending in a piece of homebrew, like a magic item, I don't want to do this sort of review that much. I like doing these, but I like doing them without judgment. And I know that I look like an asshole when I do this. And I know that people, it hurts their feelings. So that's why I'm not trying to do these sorts of reviews as much. But so I would ask for you to ask me a specific question. Like, hey, I'm working on this homebrew. I can't think of what the capstone feature should be. Or, I don't know if this is too strong. Or, I don't know how to make this strong enough. Good. I'm glad it was helpful. I'm sorry that I had to yell. I don't know how to give feedback without yelling. I'm very immature. That's not true. I do know how to give feedback without yelling, but not after I've been streaming for 3 hours and I specifically asked you to ask a question. I asked about a feature on my sword. He was fair. I'm now working on that. Listen, I don't need you defending me. I love it, but I don't need it. Do you have an idea for what its pair would do? I feel like, but maybe the pair makes you go faster and does lightning damage. Pinkalink, you can defend me if other people are attacking me, but I don't want anyone to feel like they need to defend me. I want the parasocial to start and end with you feeling like this is a fun place to go and maybe feeling a little bit of peer pressure to send me money. But I don't want you to feel any obligation other than a fun place to go, little bit of peer pressure. Listen, I'm going to be honest, right? I'm not going to lie. I'm going to act like that's not a part of this game we're playing here. All right. Let me... Rocket... Oh, wait, we forgot to give Rocket a round of applause. Rocket, thank you for sharing something. Also, thank you for being comfortable and willing to let me do a review where I wasn't trying to think about how to say nice things. I was just saying my feelings and giving the feedback. I appreciate that. I don't love doing it anymore. I used to do it a lot more. I have to figure out a way to do it in that way that everybody understands what they're getting into and actually is happy with it. And doesn't mind if I say things are stupid. People get upset when I call something stupid because it's mean, and I get it. So, you know, don't do them as much. Okay, we got another caller. We got Straw Loki. Ooh. What's up, Straw Loki? You got to unmute and undeafen.
Yes, hello.
Ahoy hoy. Greetings and salutations. How you doing?
Good.
What are we looking at today?
It's Enemy Jinx, foraged anti-magic.
All right. And what are you looking for help with specifically?
I was kind of thinking about, like, I wrote this a while back, so it's like I'm coming back to it, and it's like it's requiring attunement by a Mage Slayer feat.
Oh, weird.
Yes.
So what's it do?
So well, it first
Tell me. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah,
What is the
but-
vibe? What is the vibe of what it does? Don't go through every feature. We'll read it. But what's the vibe?
Okay, so the vibe is that it was created to sort of counter magic, in this, like its name says, and it's well, it's hard to explain, but
Do you want me to just you want me to just read it?
yes, that would probably be for the best.
Sure. Do I need to read the flavor text, or can I just dive into the mechanics?
You can dive into the mechanics if you want. If you just want to, you know.
Do I need the flavor text to understand how it works? Is what I mean.
No.
All right, let me jump into the mechanics and see if the mechanics do enough to uplift the flavor. Anyone holding this sword starts to feel the hate of magic.
That's part of the flavor too.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's a little bit of both with an artifact. While attuned to this sword, you have advantage on all saving throws. Instead of saying involving magic, you want to say against magical effects and abilities, or against spells and magical abilities. It has 4 charges that are only regained when taking damage from magical effect. Never write in voice like this. This is passive voice. So instead of saying when taking damage, say when you take damage.
Okay.
Try to avoid ing words or the phrase or am, is, are, been, be, being, those words. Those words are fine words to use in a sentence, but people end up using more of them when they're stumbling into passive voice. And passive voice is really good when you want to like talk politically, because you can separate yourself from an idea. It's sort of like instead of saying like I made mistakes, it's like mistakes happened. But you don't want that when you're writing something that is more for like artistic, evocative artistry.
So taking should just be replaced by you when you take damage.
Yeah, and it's a really like it's more grammatically correct, but that's not why it's important. Why it's important is it feels more impactful when you read that. Like it's a very minor thing, but it genuinely will make the person who's reading it more invested in reading it. Part of that is because that is what they're expecting because it's proper grammar, but a lot of that is just lizard brain stuff where there's a lot of stuff where you don't need to follow grammar if it reads better. It reading good is the most important part. But that's just a thing. Okay, let me see. While wielding the sword with your reaction using 1 charge, again, all the same feedback. All this passive voice has to go. You can add +5 to your AC against any magic attack that targets you once per day. Okay, so this should be a separate sentence if it's its own thing. Why? I'm not sure why it's like a comma thing.
I think I meant to put as part of this reaction. Like you have to use the reaction and the charge to be able to do this second effect once per day.
So then you need language for that. And again, it shouldn't be one sentence. All of the things I just said, I still feel. Make it its own sentence. Say, once per day, when you use this effect, bop, 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 bop. Okay, so you can use your reaction to... So the way you would say this is literally copy paste all of this, hit backspace, and then type the sentence. When you are targeted with a magical attack, you can use your you can expend a charge to use your reaction to add +5 to your AC. Period. That's the only thing you need. And then you have a separate sentence that says, once per day, when you use this feature, you can reflect the spell back at the target. And there are a bunch of things in D&D that do that already. And you could copy any of them to get the language for that. There's the Spectator does that, which is like a D&D monster. That's the first thing that came into my head, but get the language for that. When you use your Mage Slayer feat reaction attack to attack a creature, just say to attack a creature. You know you're using, like, when you use your Mage Slayer feat to attack a creature, unless there is another aspect that is going on here, just too many words. Don't say may, say can. You can attempt to counter the spell using a charge. So again, same feedback. What spell would you counter? What does that even mean? You can't counter spells that are actively going up. Like, do you mean dispel? Is that just the wrong word?
No, it's like counter spell. You counter a spell that's being casted. When you attack the creature, they're casting a spell. You're countering that spell.
Oh, I see. You need to write that so much more clearly. Like, the way that you just said it needs to be on the page here. So, once per day, when you use the shield reaction from this... No, once per day... no, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time reading it because of the way it's written.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. When you use... Okay, so the way that you would word this is, when you make a reaction attack using your Mage Slayer feat, you can attempt to counter the spell that triggered the attack. That's the way you would word that sentence.
Okay.
So... And it's an artifact? Is that intentional?
Yes.
So... Does this last piece use a charge too, or no?
It
doesn't in the way that it's written, but I want to make sure I'm reading that correctly.
It says
oh my
using
God,
a
chat.
charge, so yes.
I didn't even know we didn't have the picture up. Chat, you needed to yell at me and tell me that we didn't have it up.
It says using a charge, so you use a charge to do this, and
where's
then
the
roll
charge?
in.
Where does it say using a charge?
You may attempt to counter the spell using a charge.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's, again, just this thing has to be restructured, so that's obvious. Like, it has to be like the first fucking thing. If a creature attuned to this would ever be downed by magic, again, just needs to be rewritten. So
Reduced to 0 hit points, probably.
So the way that this should be written is whenever a creature is reduced to 0 hit points from magic, the item automatically expends a charge and they come back with 1 hit points or something like that. Weirdly, I almost feel like all of the things that it's doing are fine, but none of them feel... I almost feel like it's doing... Like, it doesn't fit right. It doesn't sit right to me. Like, it somehow feels like it's not doing enough to be an artifact, but I still feel like it's doing a lot. I don't know. Maybe it just feels kind of one note, because a lot of the features are all just doing sort of the same thing. They're all just doing the same thing. Yeah, I think this needs some other features. I think this needs at least 1 or 2 other things to be a solid artifact.
I felt like having advantage on all saving throws was kind of powerful. On all magic saving throws was kind of powerful, though.
It's very powerful. I would also argue it's super flavorless, and artifacts should feel... There's not a single artifact in D&D that has ever been made that doesn't have at least one power that makes you go, fuck, that's maybe too strong. This doesn't have that.
Okay.
Like, depending on the composition of your party, it is likely that more than one characters will have this ability.
But maybe it could be reduced to legendary?
No, because I don't think it. I think it's too much for a legendary. I think it needs to be an artifact if you want to do all these things. Like just this feature alone, with maybe like one other thing, is basically a legendary item. Artifact should be all about flavor too. Yeah, I mean, the flavor of this is kind of intrinsically tied to Mage Slayer, so I think it's doing a lot of that work too. But I think that you could use that to try to figure out what other features you have. Like maybe the sword allows you to detect magic a couple times per day, so you're like can hunt the magic users. Or maybe the sword gives you an innate ability to understand if someone can cast spells or not, or I don't know, stuff like that. Stuff that makes it do a little bit more than just the reaction attack stuff. And again, it needs some element of showstopper, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. When you clean the language of this up, it's going to look really nice. Because all of the things it's doing are good. It's like, it's another piece where it's like the mechanics are interesting and solid and fun and people will like them. And it's just getting kind of held down by its sentence structure.
Yeah.
Which is an easy thing to get better at. It just requires looking at things in the books that do similar things and just practicing writing in active voice. And by active voice, it means like not walking around ideas. So instead of saying, like, for example, while wielding this sword with your reaction using one charge, you add +5 to any magic attack that targets you. That's all that information is good. We need all that information. It's just a matter of the order in which you give it to us, you know?
Okay. I thought that it regaining charges when you take damage from a magical effect is pretty interesting.
I'm going to be honest, I don't see that on the page, and I lost track of that feature. So that might be interesting, but this isn't organized in a way that I was able to remember that existed as a power. You should also take a look at other artifacts, because most of them have their powers split up by like bold phrases so that they're very easy to navigate.
Okay. I'll try to do that.
You don't have to, but that's what you should do if you want this to work well. Like, if I was using this item in my game, I would not remember that feature that you just said, which isn't good or bad. It's sort of whatever. But as someone who is trying to make stuff, I think it's worthwhile to try to make it in such a way that when people use it, they use it the way that you hoped that they would, you know? Does that make sense?
Yes.
But yeah, those are my main thoughts. I think that the core is solid. I think the frame, it needs a lot of work. And it needs
one more effect.
It needs at least one more effect. It doesn't need to be big. Something like more it needs some more flavorful, fun stuff. And I think that you could play around with the effects that exist to either make them feel more like a showstopper or tone some of them down a little bit to make space for more of a showstopper. And then just get it organized so it's easy to navigate and clearly written. And you'll be good.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Named features in bold text is like I mean, look, I'll just show you what I mean. Are you still on the call? You didn't hang up on me yet, right?
No, I'm here.
Okay, so here, let me just show you what I mean. Let's say let me just copy this text. Give me 1 second. We'll do a little example. Let me lower my size. So here's the item the way that it is right now, right? So let's say I just do Where is the feature that lets you recharge charges? Where is that on the page?
It's in the same place as it's stating that it has charges in the same sentence.
Oh, that's why it's fucking hard to find. So this should definitely be its own thing.
Okay.
Okay. 1 second. So I didn't name these things anything interesting, right? Oops. I just called them. 1 second. Oops, that's the wrong button. Let me zoom in. Or zoom out. Okay. So if I let me do this one more time. I think I still have it. So this is your item the way that it's written, okay?
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. I didn't do anything. I literally just changed the paragraph breaks and bolded some titles. So much easier to read. And it's even still would be easier to read because the gray on the black doesn't make the bold show as much, but this just makes it so much easier to navigate. I cannot forget that this thing gets charges when it takes damage because it's its own feature written here in bold. I know that it has a magical shield. I know that it reflects things. I know that it does the heal things. You see what I mean? Like this way, it's like I'm diving, I'm scanning for features. If I'm scanning this sentence, I probably stop reading it here.
Okay.
Because it's like, okay, 4 charges. And that's this. Like you need to give people guidance. Like a good way to think about your homebrew. If it's for your home game, this doesn't matter as much. But if it's you're trying to just become a better homebrew writer, it's good to assume that the people have genuinely no interest in reading your homebrew. And your job is not just to give them a cool idea, but to make that cool idea easy to get through so that they want to read it.
Okay.
Nobody wants to read a paragraph of text. A lot of people want to read a bunch of bullet points of text, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Any other questions, thoughts, yearnings, aspirations?
No, that's good.
Cool. All right, thank you for the call. Bye. Click. Let us give our dear friend a round of applause. I don't know why that got into general writing workshop time. That wasn't my intention, but it slipped into it, and they didn't stop me. So I hope that was okay. To be honest, I asked a lot of questions, and they weren't able to answer them, so I felt like I just had to read it. So that just turned into me talking about it as I read it. But hopefully that was reasonable. Honestly, it's another really good example of like a really interesting item. Really fun idea. Just needs whatchamahoo's it? A little bit of cleaning. You forgot to save progress? Dude, you gotta use Google Docs. It saves progress for you. Okay. Talked about that one. I think... Okay, Arcane, did you want to join us on the call? Or no? If you don't, that's fine. You write everything in cloud? Yeah. All right. So this is called the Triborn Blade. Arcane. Do you want to be called Arcane or Allie? I don't care. I'll call you Arcane. If you care, let me know. I'm wondering if the Stoneborn stance is too powerful and should be replaced with resistance to certain damage types. I'm always a bit uncertain about items that can do a lot of things. The best way to make an item do a lot of is just make an item not do so many things. Sometimes the item shouldn't do a lot of things. Sometimes items need to do a lot of things, but the problem with an item doing a lot of things is it makes each one of those individual things, like, less impactful. Hi, Gina. What's up, buddy? We're talking about magic items, taking calls, answering questions, living life. All right, let's see. I'm not gonna, what would you ask about specifically? Stoneborn stance. All right, we're gonna skip the flavor text. What rarity are we going for here? Rare. The start of each of your turns, you can enter one of the following stances, gaining its effects until the start of your next turn. Once per day, when you enter a stance for the first time, you can trigger an additional effect. I already don't really love that. I don't love that you're giving us a secondary thing we can do with the effects before we know what they are. This is fine. This is like, okay, now I'm being asked to keep track of things that I don't know what they are yet. So I don't love that. I wouldn't give us new information before we know what things are. Make us know what things are before we clarify more details about those things. Lest we get lost in the waves of not knowing what the heck's going on. Also, maybe make these bullet points if these are all 3 stances. A swirling vortex surrounds you. I'll read your flavor text. I'll tell you what, Arcane. I will read your flavor text until I don't want to read it anymore. And you can't get offended. And I'm not going to tell you anything because you're not asking for flavor text feedback, and I don't want to go in on it unless you want me to. Forged in the city's darkest hour, this rapier houses the souls of 3 fallen heroes, each once a protector of the realm, each choosing sacrifice over survival. As their homeland stood, that is where I'm done reading it. And I'll tell you why. I want to know about the item. I don't want a history story. As a player, I want this flavor text. Maybe there's a second paragraph that gives a little bit more history. Or if you're trying to make this like the Vestiges of Divergence or the Arms of the Betrayer, which have flavor text like this, which is sort of history-based, pay very close attention to how dense those sentences are. They waste no words. There's a lot of wasted words here. Forged in the city's darkest hour literally means nothing. Gives us 0 information. Might as well not be here. 3, the souls of 3 fallen heroes. Vague, but gives us a little information. Each once a protector of the realm. Literally no new information. Exactly the same feelings I had about these 3 fallen heroes before. Could probably just cut this out. Each choosing sacrifice over survival. That's more information. Is it necessary? We'll see how the item works. If the item is not about sacrifice over survival, then I don't think it's necessary. I think you need to start by talking about the blade and not talking about these people and then the blade. And it's got to be punchier, meatier words. More detail. More detail, less words. 80% of that flavor text is legend lore, not magic item flavor text, with all due respect. Yeah, it's not doing what what we need the magic item flavor text to do. The only thing we really need the magic item flavor text to do is to make the player or the dungeon master excited to use it. That's kind of it. It can do other stuff, but if the other stuff gets in the way, then it becomes an issue. All right, let's take a look at these features. Stance 1, a swirling vortex surrounds you. Ranged attacks against you have disadvantage. The first time you enter this stance each day, creatures within 5 feet of you must make a DC 13 con save or be pushed back 10 feet. Stoneborn stance. Your skin hardens. You gain +1 to your AC. The first time you enter this stance each day, don't say may, say can. Immediately move up to your speed in a straight line. You just have to make a dex save or be knocked prone. This movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Yeah, I mean, this does a lot more than this. This just knocks creatures back 5 feet. This knocks creatures prone, moves you, and moves you without getting opportunity attacks. So just from like extra stuff it does, that's worth thinking about. Both you and the blade become wreathed in flame. Your weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 fire damage. All of your weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 fire damage? Okay, so this is a legendary item. This is a legendary item. But Cinder, dealing 1d6 extra fire damage isn't that big a deal. True. But that's not the only thing this does. You decide. This thing is either a permanent 1d6 extra fire damage on all attacks, or a permanent +1 to your AC, or permanent disadvantage on ranged attacks. And that's not all it does. Each of the stances does something different. And that's not all it does, because once a day, you can do 2 things at the same time. So, is Stoneborn stance a little stronger than the others? Yes. Unquestionably. But I think the whole thing is really strong. So I would tone that shit down. Honestly, the easiest way to tone that down is don't make this on all the time. This item has 3 charges. When you expend a charge, you can enter one of the following 3 stances. And then you list them. You stay in the stance for 1 minute. Boom. Makes it so much more balanced. On all the time items are incredibly powerful. I would make this resource based, and that would do a lot of work. This is not an ability. This is describing how you use the abilities. It just looks like it's an ability because of how it's formatted. If I was going to format this, this is how I would do it. That's how I'd format it. I'd make this... Go back. Well, I don't want this to be indented. This would be the same indent as this. But it's on the same thing as this because documents is fucking stupid. But that's how I'd organize it. I think it'd be make more sense. Arcane. Did you hear what I said, my darling? It is not that 1d6 is too strong for rare. It's that 1d6 is not the only thing this item does. This item also does this. It 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 also does this. Also, it's on all the time. Also, sometimes it does 2 of them at the same time. Oh, it's very legible. It's just an organizing difference. This is probably fine this way. So 1d6 is fine for a rare item if that's what it does. How rare is a flame tongue blade? Did I spell it wrong? So the flame tongue blade is a rare item that deals an extra 2d6 fire damage. That's the one thing it does. Look how many things this does. Yes, Flame Blade does twice as much extra damage. I acknowledge that. But it's also, that's 1d6. That's not that crazy. What's crazy is that it also does everything else. So that's what's making, like, the fact that the Flame Blade, all it does is extra 2d6 fire damage and it's rare, that should be enough of an indicator that this is not a rare item. Using magic items that do things similar to what your item does is a very good tool for balancing. It might not be better in any it might not be. No, but here's the thing, Arcane Affinity. You're saying, I guess I thought at any given moment it would never be stronger than Flame Tongue, but you're thinking about that. You're thinking about it wrong. It's the opposite. It's more like Flame Tongue is only stronger than it in one very specific moment. And that moment is the moment where you are dealing damage. This is much stronger than Flame Tongue Blade in every other circumstance. Flame Tongue Blade is not particularly helpful or has no impact on things with range or not. Doesn't help you against range. Flame Tongue doesn't help you be more defensive or move more. Flame Tongue doesn't help you do AoE or battlefield control. This does all of those. So, in the single circumstance of dealing damage, this will never be stronger than Flame Tongue Blade. But that's a very specific slice of the game. And a very specific slice of even, like, the things you need to deal with just in combat. Does that make sense? We talk about this from time to time, but in general, the more options your magic item has, the more, not even magic item, any homebrew, the more options your homebrew has, the more powerful it is, regardless of the power of the individual options. Assuming that they're not all stupid. Assuming that they all do like a little something. But like, if I have a sword that's a +2 sword, but I also have a sword that's a +1 sword, but I could also turn it into a +1 AC sword, or also a +1 to all saving throws sword, or also a +1 to all skill check sword, that sword is going to be stronger. Because I'm going to be able to use that sword for everything. Even though the number is never bigger than the one number of the other. Yeah, we had the same thought. That's so funny. But yeah, I think that regardless of the balance conversation, your thought that Stoneborn was a little stronger, I think is a good thought. I think that's worth thinking about. Not only is AC really good, but the whole secondary feature is very good. So you got to kind of decide for yourself if you want to boost the others to match that, or you like it like that, and then figure out if you want these things to be on all the time, or if you want them to be resource-based, and then find a rarity that seems appropriate for that based on what you choose. I hope that makes sense. If you have any clarifying questions, please let me know. I can't hang up on you because you didn't call in, but I can applause you. Thank you for sharing. You got to remember that when you're playing you got to remember when you're playing D&D, you are dealing with a huge variety of situations. D&D is almost never, I walk into a room, I hit stuff, I walk into a room, I hit stuff, I walk into a room, I hit stuff. There's always a variety of circumstances involved that add variables. So, options is power. That's like a mantra that you should stamp on your brain. Options equals power. Okie dokie. You should have asked me if I like the artwork. Did you draw it? Did you draw it? Did you draw it? It's cool. It's really nice. The art's great. It looks like I would not have assumed you drew it. Because it just looks very good in a way that I don't expect a level of professional artist to show up here. Like, look at the shading on the hilt and the melting into the fire. It just looks like something taken from an anime. It's very good. Kaboof! 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 Woo! Well, friends, we might be doing a shorter night tonight. We got through all the pieces that anybody sent us, answered all the questions. Straw Loki, are you still here? I had another thought about your item. If you're not still here, no worries. I'll actually just reply to in the Discord if you're not still here. I think we're just gonna stick to one item a night for this exact moment. Maybe in the future we'll do more, but I can feel myself getting a little tired. I don't know if we're gonna keep going. I don't want to just play the game where you send me items and I start reviewing all of them. I didn't really want this stream to become that. I wanted it to just be more of a let's address specific things. I didn't want to get into deep review mode. I want to think of an anime. I was thinking of an anime when I made the item, like an anime fight scene. Yeah, cool. It has that vibe for sure. You've been pretty D&D burnt out for a while, but this was fun. Dude, I don't know if I was D&D burnt out, but I was homebrew burnt out for a while. I still homebrew burnt out, honestly. It's why I don't want to do full reviews that much anymore. I like talking about it like a problem to solve, like a thing we're navigating. I'm less interested in talking about it like let me give you a lot of specific feedback about your sentence structure. All right. Let's see here. All right, friends. We are going to call it here, I think. I am tired. The night is old, and so am I. What's up, Connor? Oh, you're straw. Okay. Oh, sorry. Wait, let me... Okay, I wanted to talk about your item for a couple more seconds. One second. Okay, wait, where is my... Boom. So, if you want... I was thinking about heavy hitter type moves you could do. You might need to tweak some of these things a little bit to make it work. Like, maybe instead of this being the shield spell, this is a lower number. Or maybe you don't have advantage on saving throws against all magic, but just against spells. But you could give this sword a feature that essentially made it so, like there's something really awesome, I think, to the feeling of somebody who is like a mage slayer, like punching or hitting the magic out of people. So maybe throw something in that allows you to cast Dispel Magic on creatures when you hit them with the sword. That's not a showstopper, that's just a cool. But the showstopper, I think, would be like something along the lines of like either when you crit or maybe once a day or some amount of charges, and you can just be the center of an anti-magic circle. And it doesn't need to be the full size of an anti-magic circle or anti-magic sphere or whatever the spell is. It could just be like a 5-foot radius. So it doesn't need to be quite as powerful, but it can still be like really powerful for like a short period of time. But that might be a fun way of giving this thing something that's like a go big or go home kind of feature. Also, if you did that, I think that you could very easily, change the advantage on all anti-magic stuff or all magic stuff, because it would sort of be filling that role a little bit too. So you could tone this down And what that would do is it would make this feature less powerful, but this feature is good, but it's not exactly super exciting. It's just it's essentially resistance to a damage type. It's not that literally, but that's the same level of exciting. Or it's resistance to damage. It's like the resistance to damage is good, but it's not exciting. So I think you could play around with you not having advantage on all saving throws against magic and give them some sort of dispelling aura or anti-magic aura that they could activate. And that would do kind of the same thing, but be a little bit more like... Poof. The last feature does anti-magic. Did I miss that? 1 second. Yeah, but this is different. So what this feature does is when the creature wielding it drops to 0 hit points, they come back with 1 and produce a big anti-magic field around themselves for a round. That's fine, but the player has no control over using that. The player can only use that when they go to 0 hit points. So it's not something that they can use actively in combat. It's something that happens sometimes. I would actually drop the anti-magic field here, and I would make it something that you could use. Like, what makes more sense? A Mage Slayer getting an anti-magic field when they are almost dead and not really able to fight anymore, or a Mage Slayer getting an anti-magic field that they bring into combat to help them fight? You know what I mean? And if you feel like it makes more sense here, keep it here. But I think it would make more sense as like something that you could use more actively. Whenever a feature triggers on dropping to 0 hit points, on a specific condition being met, on a specific damage type being done, something that isn't a guarantee to happen every session, it essentially is making that feature a non-active feature. It's a feature that the player sometimes gets to use, often doesn't get to use, and when they do get to use it, they're not deciding when they use it. That doesn't mean it's bad. Things happening as reactions is awesome. You just want to think about what that is going to mean for how much it's actually getting used at your table. So like this, it'll happen a couple times, but it's not, they're not going to feel like this is a thing that they are actively deciding to use. And I will also say, and this is maybe a bigger deal here, this makes it so that when you are dropped to 0 hit points and you come back with 1 hit point, none of your magic using friends can use any magic to help you. So that might be worth thinking about too. Which is another reason why maybe it shouldn't trigger when you would need help. It would trigger when you are deciding to use it. Because with this, nobody can cast Polymorph on you to turn you into a giant ape to get you out of the situation of only having 1 hit point. No one can cast Healing Word on you to bump up your HP. No one can cast False Life on you or Haste on you or Mirror Image or even like an illusion around you. And while you might be an anti-magic character, it is likely that you will have some magic users on your team, and this would hinder them dramatically. It also would just literally make it so they couldn't use their magic themselves, even if they were just close enough to you. So I think a smaller anti-magic field and one that the player decides when they activate allows them to have more control over not hindering their allies and also deciding when they want to be able to be affected by their allies' magic versus not. I hope that makes sense. Because I think it'll feel really different if it is a activatable anti-magic as opposed to a reaction anti-magic. No, the anti-magic effect isn't too rare. I just forgot that it was there. I mean, to be honest, I forgot it was there because it is a big deal, but it is a half a sentence at the end of a long sentence. It's kind of the same issue that happened with this one, where it's like you're sort of there's the features and this is like, you shouldn't feel bad about this. This is your first homebrew. So expect to make a lot of mistakes. But when you tack a piece of information on to a larger piece of information like that, it's you're not going to assume that it's a whole new feature or something that is like super important. Yeah, a lot of this could be reorganized into bullet points that would work really well. That's a good suggestion. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to get that thought out there. I had it after we finished talking about yours, and it was percolating, and I wanted to... I didn't want you to lose it if you wanted it. What's up, Chase Ordonis? How's it going? Welcome to the show. Chase Ordonis. I hardly know Ordonis. You rewrite it if you want to. Connor, you don't have to rewrite it if you don't. Like, if you like it as is, just keep it. But no pressure. The thing with Homebrew is, like, it's whatever you want it to be. You know what you're trying to do with it. Depending on what your goals are, you have to hold yourself to higher standards or lower standards. If you want it to be something that is being used publicly, if you want it to be homebrew that anyone could use at any table and you don't need to be there to explain it, then you need to work hard to make it as clear as possible and as balanced as possible. If you just want your players to use it at their table, then you have to decide how much you as a dungeon master want to spend time in-game reminding players how their items work, and how much you as a dungeon master in-game want to deal with wonky balancing issues. Because then, if you don't really care about dealing with wonky balancing issues, and you don't really care about stopping the game to clarify how someone's item works, then it doesn't need to be clear and it doesn't need to be balanced. But in my experience, it is just easier being a dungeon master when you don't have to clarify things for the players and when you don't have to jump through loops to balance something. But it's not as important for home games as it is for public use. So some items have things we're directly reviewing. Some of them anger the elder gods, but not having a target. That's the fun of the draw. I misunderstand. A good formatted homebrew is pleasing to those that need to read it. I often go back and edit my homebrew at my table. Yeah, it's nice. Home Brewery is a website that a lot of people use for making homebrew. You do what you are. The goal is public use. Okay, cool. So now I don't feel as bad as talking a lot about the grammar. After we looked at your piece, I realized I talked a lot more about like the structure and the writing than I did the mechanics. But honestly, that's because the mechanics are pretty good. Like for your first homebrew item, it's not that crazy. It's pretty solid. But if your goal is you're trying to like put stuff out there, share it publicly, learn how to like write in a way that like fits the tone of that, then it will have been a little bit more helpful. What's up, Wing Chun? How's it going, buddy? Items have been great. Lots of really fun ideas. Lots of really, really great pieces in different iterations of their completion. Lots of people that are new to homebrew. Lots of people that are old to it. It's been a good mush. Been a fun stream. Been a fun stream. I do think we are going to wrap now, though. I think we're going to wrap. What's up, CF? I can't decide if I should start streaming earlier in the day or later in the day. You know? I've been thinking about that. Or if I should just stream exactly when I'm streaming. I know it has like a minor impact, but I don't know how much of one it has. ¿Por qué no los dos? Because I have to make money, and I don't make any money on streams. So I can't commit that much time to them. The only reason why I can be a full-time content creator is because I spend a shit ton of time making YouTube shorts. That's where my money comes from. I make like a couple $100 a month on Twitch max. If I ever get to a place where Twitch becomes a substantial part of my income, or YouTube Live becomes a substantial part of my income, I will stream much longer and much more. But until then, I think the goal of streaming is more of a community creative writing hangout thing and less of like a this is what I do for my job. Yeah, YouTube. I mean, YouTube Shorts are monetized. They're not monetized well, but they're monetized. No. I'm not here to. I'm not asking. Please. Do not misinterpret this. I am not. This is not me asking you to go engage with any extra content or do anything. I'm just being honest. I'm not going to. I don't like being dishonest with you guys. I like to just tell it like it is, because that way I don't have to think about how to say what I'm feeling, and I can just say what I'm feeling. My streams are great. You're great. Let me. Oh, I don't need to send a message to our dear Connor because I just was speaking to him. Okay, let me just see something. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing a stream where we're specifically talking about making silly items and making silly items that work well. So it will be similarly structured to this in that if people have things that they are working on that they want to send in or questions that they want to ask either by calling in or in the chat, you can. But it might be a little bit more focused on us making stuff only because I foresee less people having things that they want to show. And if so I foresee that we will be spending more time making things together tomorrow, only because I just don't imagine there's a lot of people that have a lot of silly homebrew to look at. But if you do, I would love to see some. Oh, listen, the feedback sessions, I love these. This is great. It's just my intention for doing these sorts of streams is not financial. If I was trying to make money, I would never stream, and I would just spend all of this time committed to making other videos and fishing for sponsors. The reason why I like doing these streams is because I miss my D&D community, and I want to do something that is more connected to my D&D community, and I don't want to have to sit by myself and film and edit a video to do that. I want to feel like I'm doing something with other people. And also, I just know that there's a lot of people that are in my little community in the Discord, and just mostly in the Discord, but online in general, too. A lot of people in the YouTube and Twitch audience also. But not really outside of that, because where else do we exist? They like this, and it feels like a way for us to community hang. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it would be lovely if the streaming became financially a piece of the puzzle, but I'm trying to be I'm trying to change. The reason also why I changed the way I do my streams dramatically is because I want them to be fun community time for you and for me. That's why I'm trying to keep them light and breezy, but also a little silly and informative with an occasional, little firecracker every now and then. If it ever gets to a point where it's like, oh, this is what I'm doing for a living now, the stream side, it will probably be a lot more streams. But I don't know. We'll see. Oh, Max, you're too kind, you gentle giant. Arcane, you got some silly stuff? I want to see some. I want to see it. I love silly items. I think there's almost nothing better than a silly item that is really well crafted. Oh, it's so good. There was a while when I was playing D&D where I gave my players way too many, way too overpowered items because I was just new to the game and I was excited to give them stuff. So they were level 7 or 8, and one of them had Black Razor. And they were all crazy overpowered. And it got to a point where I didn't know how to give them magic items anymore because they just had the most powerful magic items. But I also had sort of trained them to want more magic items. So I got really into making up very weird magic items that could do things that weren't exactly power gamey, but were like weird. Like a magic item that allows you to add an adjective to a spell to change how it works. Stuff like that. So you could, if you weren't going to cast Fireball, you could cast Stinky Fireball or Angry Fireball or things like that. That was a fun item. Also very overpowered in its use, but that's a good example, I think, of like a silly item. That was a silly item that I liked that I made. Make a weird, silly items for your friends or favorite characters. This is just me asking you to make my characters items. Oh, for which game? For which campaign, Gina? Who can I make it for? Which character? Or does it not matter? You just want an item, and you want the item to be made without a specific character in mind. And you just want a silly item. One of my favorite magic items that I made is so simple, and my players used it a lot. And I've talked about this before on stream. It was a ring. It was like a brass ring. And it just looked like a nice ornate ring. I mean, not ornate, kind of a simple ring, but like a wedding ring from somebody who wasn't super wealthy in fantasy time is kind of what it looked like. But when it was fully submerged in water, it weighed 500 pounds. So my players figured out all sorts of weird ways to take advantage of that. One of my players' favorite thing to do was they got some twine and they tied a piece of twine around the ring, and then they would tie the rope the other side to stuff, and then they would throw it in water, and it would become like an anchor, like pull things down. And then another time, I had a player who was a conjuration wizard, and again, early in my games, I also am a very yes and dungeon master where I let things happen that shouldn't, even though I don't always recommend that, where they wanted to use their conjuring stuff to summon a bucket of water on top of somebody's head as somebody threw the ring into the bucket, so it would land on their head and then be 500 pounds. I don't remember if it worked or not, but it was a funny idea. Godkiller doesn't use magic items. Yeah, I know. I would love to make something for Godkiller. That'd be fun. But I'm happy to. I like making stuff for projects. Oh, I'm really glad that the people. Okay, people. This is not D&D stuff, but all of my Warhammer 40K, all of my Warhammer 40K content, I get two very polar opposite responses, and one I get a lot more than the other. The response that I get a lot, which is the one that I want, which is really nice, is people being like, I don't know anything about Warhammer 40K, but these are fun, and now like I'm learning about it a little. Because very much the goal of my Warhammer 40K videos has been, this is such a hard setting to get interested in, and most people that talk about it know so much about it that they don't know how to talk about it in a way that isn't like very off-putting without a lot of context. The example that I use is like, did you know that Abaddon the Despoiler crashed the Black Citadel into Cadia? And if you don't know anything about Warhammer, that's not exciting. That's just nothing. So I try to make my, whatever his name is, I try to make my Warhammer shorts informative in a way that you don't need any context to decide whether or not you think they're interesting. You don't need any context to understand them. So I think some people really like that, and some people get a lot of, a joy out of it. But also a lot of people feel like I am a bad influence on the Warhammer 40K community. Like, legit. 7 ads? That's too many. It's only once an hour. Sorry. I have it set for there's ads once an hour. If any new people are going to Warhammer 40k, it's probably 18% you. Yeah. I have not played any Warhammer 40k tabletop. I bought my first Warhammer 40k mini at PAX Unplugged. You want to guess what it is? I haven't put it together yet. Do you want to guess what it is? I'll give you a clue. It is guessable. It is not an unreal. If you know what I think about Warhammer 40k, it is a reasonable thing to guess. Don't make a guess until you think. Think about me. Think about who I am. Think about what I like to talk about the most in Warhammer 40k. What I like the most in Warhammer 40k. What would I buy a mini of? Keeping in mind I bought this mini without the intention of necessarily playing, but just because I wanted to own a mini. What did I buy? You're getting closer. It's definitely an orc, but I think you could guess which one. I think you could guess the specific orc unit it is, if you really think about it. I'll ask a question. I'll give you an answer. Who is the orkiest orc? Who's the orkiest orc? I'm not saying who was the orkiest orc. I'm saying who is the orkiest orc. Because we can't have the beast. That's right. It is Ghazghkull Thraka, the orkiest orc. I haven't even tried to put it together yet. I know nothing about Warhammer minis. I really want to find someone that knows the process of putting together and painting a mini to like help me, because I don't want to mess it up too much. I also have a bunch of minis that are like D&D minis that I've accrued over the years that aren't painted. So I think I'm going to teach myself to paint minis using those. And I'm not even going to try to paint Ghazghkull Thraka until I have a stronger sense of how to paint minis. Because this guy, I want to do him justice. And I think even just the process of clipping out all those tiny little pieces of plastic and super gluing them together is going to be enough of a learning process and difficult for me that I will feel satisfied having him as a thing. Although I was told you're supposed to paint Ghazghkull before you put him together. Painting stream when I can figure out how to technically do that and or afford buying what I would need to do that in terms of like additional cameras or things like that. You live outside Philly and would help me. I appreciate that, but I'm also just an eldritch being that lives on the internet. And there might be a physical manifestation that lives in Philadelphia sometimes, but he only exists in very short increments when is necessary. I do want a cheesesteak. I want a cheesesteak right now. You wish subbing ended the ads? Does it not? Thunderwings, thank you for the prime. Yeah, I don't know what's better. Would you guys rather there be ads more regularly and then them be like a minute long, or ads once an hour and then being 3 minutes long? That's the question. That's the question. Right now they're set for 3 minutes of ads every minute. Not every minute, every hour. I feel like that feels better than like a minute of ads every 20 minutes or whatever the system makes it be when you make it different. Also, having it 3 minutes every hour makes it so people don't get hit with the immediate ads most of the time. The main difference why I changed it is if you do the 3 minute ads every hour, people don't immediately get ads when they come to the channel. If you make them shorter, people get ads as soon as they click on the channel. They get that intro ad. And I hate that intro ad so much. Yeah, the War Master. Ghazghkull Thraka. The biggest boy, the bestest boy. Whew, good stream tonight, guys. Fun show. Good times looking at your things. It was a good evening. That could be a very inappropriate sentence out of context. Good time looking at your things. Good time looking at your things. You know? Could be a little hectic. What time do I normally start? Normally start between like 7, like usually on 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to decide if I should start streaming earlier or later. I don't know if prime time evening is the best time anymore for me. I'm feeling like... I just don't know. I just don't know. Because my numbers get higher on YouTube the later I go into the night. And I don't know if that's just because I'm streaming longer and people are enjoying it, or it's because there's more of my audience is watching later at night. Twitch, it kind of just stays the same. We'll play some more games. Not tonight, but we'll play some more games, do some stream skimming. I have to play the DLC of Outer Wilds also, but I want to just take a little Outer Wilds break before that. I'm making a video that is going to be maybe the most what's it called when you take a big swing? Auspicious? No. What's the word? When you're doing something that's like a big risk. Ambitious! Wolfie, thank you. I think my Outer Wild, I'm making a long form Outer Wilds video that I think will be my most ambitious long form video, maybe since my Gods and Dungeon Masters video, which I made like 2 years ago. I've started to put it together. I have a sense of like what I want the structure to be, and I think it's gonna be a long video. But I think it's going to be really good. I was trying to figure out, how do I take this beautiful story and stream or whatever and turn it into something that's like enjoyable as a long form video? Isn't it just like an edit of the stream? Because I didn't want to just be an edit of the stream. So I thought of a good framing for my my Outer Wilds video essay that I think is going to make it sort of distinct from other Outer Wilds videos, but also in a very personal way that I think it'll be really good. I think it'll be really good. But it's going to be like, I mean, it's probably going to be like an hour long. It's going to be a long video. So that's something I'm working on. So that's eating up, and I kind of don't want to start the DLC until I finish that video. There's also a game called like the Bridge of Obradin, or like the something of Obradin, that a bunch of people were telling me I should try. That is not exactly Outer Wilds, but is similar, like exploratory mystery story thing. So maybe we'll try that. I also want to try the one where you can change the perspective of objects and that changes their size. That's another game that everyone says is really fun, that I don't really know anything about and never played. I don't even know what it's called right now. Those are what I'm thinking about for games right now. If I was just going to cash game, I'd probably play Marvel Rivals and make you guys watch me hard pick Moon Knight no matter what and play him mediocrely. Because that's how I play Marvel Rivals. Moon Knight or The Thing? Or I'm not interested. Maybe Wolverine if I'm feeling like being goofy. Disco Elysium. Do I need to read all the text out loud, or is it voice acted? I don't want to do Disco Elysium if I have to read all the text out loud. I don't love reading out loud. And I know that Disco Elysium is a lot of reading out loud. If it's voiced, I would be more keen on playing it. Because I have heard good things about Disco Elysium. I heard it's a crazy game. Crazy. You just replayed it? Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. I know that like the aesthetic is like grunge future dystopia, sort of like hard-boiled detective dystopia. I have not tried Rogue Trader, but I really want to. That's another game that I really want to play. People have suggested that one as a good Warhammer game to play. I've been trying to find another Warhammer game to play. I don't really want to do any of the Total War games. I'm not super interested in like micromanaging armies. I liked Space Marines games where I'm just a monster guy killing other monster guys, but I'd be interested in like some more story ones too. Darktide, yeah, Darktide. Well, I really like Vermintide. Vermintide is great. So Darktide is probably pretty fun too. Vermintide is really fun. I haven't played a lot, but I love Vermintide. Vermintide's really fun. So I should probably try Darktide, I guess. I think we're gonna wrap. It's a little bit of a shorter stream than I would normally do, but I'm a little tired. I got a meeting early tomorrow morning. And then after that meeting, I have to make a YouTube video that I have to put out tomorrow afternoon. What should my YouTube short be tomorrow? I'm in a weird predicament with my YouTube shorts where I've created a narrative and I feel like I need to continue the narrative before I can start making normal videos again. And the narrative is that the one guy left, so now the other guy is trying to convince D&D characters to get into Warhammer. So I have an idea for a video, I think, but I'm also keen on ending that storyline soon. So I got to figure out how to close that bow. Tie that bow. Close that book. All right, I'll look into Disco Elysium. I've heard very good things about it. All right, team. I think we are going to wrap here, though. But if you've never been here for the ending, don't leave just yet. Because we don't just sort of hang up on you on this show. We like to have a little ending moment because, you know, much like in Outer Wilds, we might all be sitting on our own little planets. We are not going to all be one right now, Dragoness, but I did figure out what I needed to do to rebuild what I need so that we can all be one again soon. There was some tech issues when I moved and had to redo some OBS stuff, but I figured it out. Anyway, it's important to remember, guys, we may be a little bit alone. We are also very much together. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting me, for hanging out. You guys are the best. Look at all these supportive folk. Look at all these supportive people. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Champions. We will see you guys tomorrow for some silly streaming. Silly homebrew streaming, rather. And we're going to go raid my buddy Caustic, who is on a podcast with me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I might put a poll out in my Discord or on YouTube to ask about what times people would like if I was streaming. Just to get a sense of that. But we're not going to change anything for tomorrow. All right. Anyway, love you. Bye. You guys are the best. Don't forget to feed your pets. Have a good night. Bye. Hey, YouTube. It's just you and me now, baby. YouTube, if you want to join us in the raid, this is Caustic. She's awesome, and we're raiding her. No pressure, but you're welcome to join us too. All right, love you on YouTube also. Bye.